Chapter 1590. Especially those meritorious generals. When they saw that Chu Xiaoyang was young and handsome, as well as his status as a West Chu trader, they looked down on him from the bottom of their hearts. They could not understand why the emperor would make him the king of Chu. Not only did he give him the title of king of Chu, he also gave the military power to a traitor. So there were people who ridiculed him, people who looked down on him, and people who spoke rudely. Chu Xiaoyang turned a blind eye to these people and turned a deaf ear to their words. That night, in the middle of the night, he walked into the central tent alone. The first thing he did was to beat the drum and order the generals. Dong, dong, dong. The deafening sound of the drum was like an angry thunder that resounded over the South Yu capital, waking up the sleeping night. This was the beating drum. When the generals heard the beating drum, they were all awakened from their dreams. They did not dare believe their ears as they listened to the dense rain of drum beats. The beating drum? Why would someone sound the drum of general at this time? Could it be that my ears are damaged? Or is father dreaming? The generals listened carefully and found that this was not a dream at all. There was indeed someone beating the drum. They immediately got up from their warm blankets, hurriedly mounted their horses, and galloped towards the direction of the drill ground. Some generals didn't even bother to put on their boots and hurried to the general selection stage. The army had a strict order. After the beating of the drum, all the generals and soldiers had to gather in front of the stage within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Otherwise they would be beheaded. No one dared to disobey the military order. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, all the generals and soldiers had gathered in front of the stage. Some of them had thrown away their armor, some were barefooted, some were only wearing their upper body armor, and some had messy hair. They all looked very funny, but no one dared to laugh. Time was too short. It was already not easy for them to arrive in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, so no one cared about their image. Only, everyone's eyes were looking at the stage. There were several dozen torches lit around the stage, illuminating the entire stage. Everyone could clearly see that the huge platform was empty, not a single person could be seen. What was going on? Why was it that someone had sounded the roll-calling drum, but no one appeared on the roll-calling platform? Could it be that someone was playing a big joke on them? The generals and soldiers began to angrily shout. There was actually someone who dared to use the drum to play a joke on them. They clearly did not want to live. Who is it? This kind of courage, actually daring to beat the drum. Stand out. What kind of man are you if you don't dare to admit what you did? We have to catch this person who disturbed the army and behead him. Amidst the clamor of the crowd, someone suddenly pointed at a corner of the stage and shouted, "Look, there's a person there." The soldiers looked in the direction of the man's finger, and indeed they saw a white figure. He was dressed in a snow-white battle robe, and no one knew when he had gone up the stage, but no one had noticed. The man in white slowly stepped forward and walked to the center of the stage. He glanced at the generals and soldiers below the stage. His gaze was dignified and deep, like a sharp arrow of ice. It's him. It's the newly appointed King Chu Xiaoyang. He is king of Chu as of. That's right, he's just a traitor. Who does he think he is? Chapter 1591. Chu Xiaoyang turned a deaf ear to the noise coming from below the stage. He slowly raised the imperial edict in his hand and opened it with a schwa sound. This is the order. Anyone who disobeys will be beheaded. He circulated his inner energy, causing his voice to be clear and impassioned, and it carried a strand of murderous intent as it resounded throughout the entire drill grounds, allowing everyone to hear it clearly. No one said anything, but many people had looks of disdain on their faces, especially those generals who had military merits. A stinky brat who was still wet behind the ears, relying on his status as the West Chu king. He had only presented a map and obtained the emperor's favor, allowing him to command the three armies. They were all blood-soaked generals with military merits, so why did they have to listen to this stinky brat's orders? He was just using the imperial edict as a command arrow. Some people couldn't hold it in and began to berate him. What qualifications do you have to beat the drum? Do you know that once the drum is struck, it will shake the heavens and the earth? If it wasn't for the fact that something big had happened, then you would have committed a grave crime by beating the drum without permission. This person was the commander of the capital's guard army, named Wu Qingji. He was the emperor's favorite and had a high position. He had an arrogant look on his face as he looked at Chu Xiaoyang on the stage. Chu Xiaoyang's face sank as his eyes fell onto Wu Qingji's face. He softly said, "Who are you?" "I am the commander of the capital's guard army, Wu Qingji." Wu Qingji loudly said, his voice shaking the field. Very good, let's start the roll. Chu Xiaoyang put away the imperial edict and opened the list. He loudly said, Wu Qingji. All the generals were stunned and Wu Qingji was even more stunned. His name wasn't the first on the list and he was always called at the end of the list. In this moment of shock, Chu Xiaoyang had already called again, Wu Qingji. Wu Qingji instinctively wanted to agree, but when he saw Chu Xiaoyang's young face that had not been tainted by the flames of war at all, his chest felt suffocated and he swallowed the "here" that was about to come out of his mouth. He was just a stinky brat that hadn't even grown his hair. What qualifications did he have to shout his name here? Was his name something he could shout? In the entire capital, who would not respectfully call him Master Wu when they saw him? Chu Xiaoyang had already called for the third time, Where is Wu Qingji? Someone beside him couldn't help whispering, Commander Wu, quickly answer. If you don't answer 3 times, you will be beheaded. Wu Qingji gave a snort and ignored him. He had an arrogant look on his face as he looked at Chu Xiaoyang. He was thinking, I won't agree, let's see what a brat like you can do to this commander. Father doesn't believe that you have the guts to cut off father's head. The commander of the Jingdo guards, Wu Qingji, didn't even give 3 warnings. He deserves to be executed. Men, execute him. Chu Xiaoyang stood on the stage and shouted in a cold. Everyone below the stage stood there without moving. They looked at each other in blank dismay and revealed a look of disbelief, as if Chu Xiaoyang on the stage was telling a giant joke. To Commander? Did they hear wrong? Who didn't know that Commander Wu was the Emperor's most trusted person? He had once led the army to the southern Yu country, so the Emperor made him the commander of the guard army and had him guard the imperial city. He was more favored than anyone else. Chapter 1592. Stinky brat, your hair hasn't even grown out yet you dare come to my South Yu country to show off your might. Why don't you ask around just who I, Wu Qingji, am? When father was dominating the battlefield, you were still wearing diapers. You want to cut off father's head, pay. Father will stand here today. I want to see who dares to touch a single hair of father's. Wu Qingji puffed out his chest and said arrogantly. Before he could even say the word hair, he suddenly felt a chill on his neck. His eyes were wide open, almost popping out. His face was filled with an indescribable look of shock. Even in death he did not know how he died. Hua! The army burst into an uproar. They only saw Chu Xiaoyang's white figure fly down from the sky like a god of war. A shining long sword had appeared in his hand. A white light flashed. A head flew into the air, and fresh blood spurted out from the neck, splattering all over the faces of the surrounding people. The blood was still warm. The army couldn't help looking up at the head flying in the air. That face was filled with anger, filled with disbelief and shock. His eyes popped out. If it wasn't Commander Wu Qingji, then who could it be? Commander Wu has been killed. This brat cut off Commander Wu's head. Quickly report this to the Emperor. After everyone recovered from their shock, they began to shout out. Some people were already running towards the gates of the field. They saw a white figure flash in the air. Shwa, shwa, shwa. Several skulls fell to the ground. The people that wanted to run out to report were all corpses on the ground. It was unknown when Chu Xiaoyang had jumped back onto the general stage. Standing high up on the stage, the wind blew against his battle robe, making him look like a god. The tip of the sword in his hand was still dripping with blood, dripping onto the stage. Everyone was shocked by this scene as they stared at Chu Xiaoyang on the high stage. The large field was completely silent, no one dared to even make a sound. Chu Xiaoyang slowly raised his sword and gently blew off the blood on the tip. Then he wrapped the soft sword around his waist. Everyone finally realized that he had a soft sword on his waist. No wonder he was able to appear and disappear like a ghost, instantly cutting off Wu Qingji's head. They all looked at Chu Xiaoyang like they were looking at a devil. They were afraid that this devil-like man would suddenly make a move and their heads would be removed from their necks. In an instant, many people regretted mocking Chu Xiaoyang. Their hearts were filled with anxiety, afraid that Chu Xiaoyang would pursue this matter. Who would have thought that after Chu Xiaoyang put away the soft sword, he would not even look at the people in the crowd and he coldly said, I will call 3 times. Those that don't answer will be beheaded. The hearts of the soldiers turned cold. Now no one dared to think that Chu Xiaoyang was joking. Wu Qingji's corpse lying on the ground was the most terrifying example. Chu Xiaoyang opened the general book and loudly said, King, Great General, Commander, South General, Great, South. Chu Xiaoyang called out names one by one and there was a loud response from the audience. No one dared to go against his words or actions anymore. When the army thought of the general picking stage, they were filled with fear towards Chu Xiaoyang. Chapter 1593. After occupying the southern pass city, the next target was Shuanglu. Chu Xiaoyang looked at the flying tiger banner fluttering in the wind and revealed a rare serious look on his face. He had already taken the southern pass city for 5 days, but he had been guarding the southern pass city without moving. He heard the sound of boots behind him. Someone was striding up the city wall, heading straight for him. Chu Xiaoyang did not turn around and just lightly said, "Ping Shijun Wang, are you here to patrol the city?" Behind him was a 26 or 27-year-old youth. He had a tall and sturdy body, with a wide waist and a pair of bright eyes under his thick eyebrows. At this moment, his eyes were filled with anger as he viciously stared at Chu Xiaoyang. This Ping Shijun Wang was not someone else, it was the South Yu country's second prince, Tuoba Zheng. He was brave and incomparably brave, leading the soldiers on the battlefield, earning many military merits for the South Yu country. He was even called the South Yu country's war god by many people. So he was given the title of Jun Wang at a young age and was placed in an important position by the South Yu emperor. He worked hard every day, hoping that one day he could go into battle and lead the South Yu army to sweep through West Chu, earning a great merit. He had waited 10 years for this chance and it had finally come to him. The emperor really did send an army to the west, but the commander was not him, but rather Chu Xiaoyang, who had just escaped from West Chu. The thing that made him the most angry was that he was the emperor's son and had made great contributions, but he was only given the title of Jun Wang. The other side had not made a single contribution, but his royal father had given him the title of King Chu, a title that was above him. He was a dignified prince, yet he had to greet him when he saw him. How could he accept this? What filled him with even more indignation was that his royal father had given him the position of this brat's vice-general. Tuoba Zheng was filled with hatred, not accepting Chu Xiaoyang at all. He just wanted to find a chance to have a good fight with the other side, letting the other side know just how powerful he was. But the army was very strict, forbidding private fights, and anyone who disobeyed would be beheaded. Although he was a prince, he did not dare go against a military order, so he could only endure it. But his unwillingness to accept Chu Xiaoyang had already appeared on his face. Chu Xiaoyang already saw this, but he did not care. When Tuoba Zheng heard the other party address him as Ping Shijun Wang, instead of second prince, it was obvious that the other party was pressuring him with his official position. Tuoba Zheng felt suffocated and depressed. He angrily said, "This prince is not here to patrol the city, but here to find you." "Oh, I don't know why the duke isn't patrolling the city and is instead looking for this king?" Chu Xiaoyang still did not turn around as his eyes continued to look forward. Tuoba Zheng couldn't help following Chu Xiaoyang's line of sight. All he saw was a vast plain without a single person. He didn't know what this fellow was looking at. "This prince wants to ask you, we've already taken down the southern pass for several days, why don't we follow up our victory and take down Shuanglu in one fell swoop? Why are we stationed here? Have you led soldiers in battle before? Do you know the crime of delaying military plans?" Tuoba Zheng asked in an interrogative tone. He had already begun to display the dignity of a prince. Shachu. He had a silver crown on his head, sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes. His white battle robe fluttered in the wind above the city walls, making him look like a god of war descending from the heavens. Chapter 1594. Ever since Chu Xiaoyang entered the army, almost everyone gave him the title of war god. Although he had only entered the camp for a short time, he had used the drum to angrily kill Wu Qingji to establish his might, shocking the entire army in one fell swoop. Especially when the emperor did not pursue his crimes and even gave him a reward, it made everyone's eyes drop. Tuoba Zheng did not dare act rashly. The princess came to find this king this time to question this king. Chu Xiaoyang slightly curled his lips and gave a cold laugh. The royal prince is right. This king has never led an army into battle before, and this is the first time I've been the commander-in-chief, but so what? The emperor gave the commander's seal to this king, not the royal prince. How to lead an army is not up to the royal prince to give orders. Tuoba Zheng was so angry he couldn't say anything as he angrily glared at Chu Xiaoyang. Chu Xiaoyang only coldly looked at him before turning around. He continued to look in the direction he was looking at and no longer paid attention to Tuoba Zheng. Tuoba Zheng almost spat out a mouthful of blood. As a prince with many military merits, this was the first time someone had looked down on him like this. Especially Chu Xiaoyang's disdain, it was already written all over his face. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. He stared at the back of Chu Xiaoyang's head, wishing he could smash the other side's head into tofu with a single punch. Chu Xiaoyang, who do you think you are? You're relying on your pretty face to win my royal father's favor. What military merits do you have? What qualifications do you have to speak to this prince like this? You deliberately delayed taking Shuanglu, delaying the battle. You're clearly leaning towards West Chu. This prince has already seen through your wild ambitions. This prince will write a letter to my royal father and report everything you've done to him. He will definitely remove you from the commander-in-chief position. You wait. Tuoba Zheng said through gritted teeth. He turned around and walked down the city walls with large steps. Chu Xiaoyang suddenly turned around and said in a cold voice, "Stop." Tuoba Zheng said with a cold laugh, "What, this prince has seen through your thoughts and you're afraid? Feeling guilty? You're clearly a spy sent by West Chu to my South Yu. You can fool my royal father but you can't fool this prince." Along the way, this prince had already clearly seen that you were showing mercy to West Chu. You clearly captured their generals but you didn't kill them and let them all go. Also, after attacking Nanping City, you immediately gave the order not to harm a single citizen in the city. Tell me, what intentions do you have by doing this? Chu Xiaoyang lightly said, "You're right, it was this king who let them go and it was this king who gave the order not to harm the citizens of the city. With just these two things you can prove that this king is a spy? That? Every time my South Yu army a city, every 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 city is a massacre. Since we have a city but because we has lost. Yes. Ago every army loyalty to Chu. Doing this you're clearly making the soldiers wary of you. If you're not a spy, who is?" Tuoba Jing shouted loudly. Chapter 1595. Tuoba Zheng's face instantly turned red and he jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He pointed at Chu Xiaoyang and shouted, You traitorous spy, you dare mock this prince. This prince will fight it out with you." Chu Xiaoyang's words had stabbed the most painful part of his heart. The South Yu emperor had 5 sons and 1 daughter. He was ranked second, so his status was only below the eldest prince. However, he was given the title of a duke while the eldest and third princes were given the titles of princes. The other 4 princes and 5th princes were also given the title of duke because they were not yet crowned. Tuoba Zheng had always been puzzled. Among all the princes, he was one of the best in terms of military achievements and martial arts. Why did his imperial father only confer him the title of duke while his eldest brother and third brother were conferred the title of imperial prince even though they were inferior to him in all aspects? Everyone knew about this matter and all the ministers were discussing it behind his back, using it as a laughing stock, but no one dared to mention it in front of Tuoba Zheng. Everyone knew that he had a fiery temper and cared about his face, so no one dared to let him know about it. But there were no walls in this world that didn't have a crack. The criticism of the ministers behind his back still reached Tuoba Zheng's ears. He flew into a rage but there was nothing he could do. However, Chu Xiaoyang was the only one that dared to mention this matter in front of him, so he couldn't help but fly into a rage. He pulled out the saber from his waist and slashed at Chu Xiaoyang's chest. In his rage he completely ignored the strict rule of not fighting in the army. "Royal Prince, are you going to fight with this king?" Chu Xiaoyang was not panicked at all. His 2 fingers gently caught the back of the saber and the saber could not move forward at all. Tuoba Zheng tried to take it back but the saber did not move at all. It was like it had taken root in Chu Xiaoyang's hand. "Royal Prince, you can't. Royal Prince, please calm down." His personal guards saw this and quickly grabbed him by the waist. They tried to persuade him, "Royal Prince, you can't do this. The army has strict rules to not fight in private. Anyone who disobeys will be executed." These Tuoba Zheng's personal guards had all appeared on the field before, so they had personally seen how Chu Xiaoyang had cut off Wu Qingji's head with lightning speed. He had lightly jumped off the high platform, his feet not touching the ground, just like a general flying through the air to cut off a person's head. This scene was deeply imprinted in the minds of everyone present, causing them to shudder at the thought of it. They were afraid that Chu Xiaoyang would take out his sword and cut off the royal prince's head in a fit of rage. Because this matter had been started by the royal prince, even if Chu Xiaoyang cut off his head, the emperor would not say anything. Tuoba Zheng's body turned cold as he let go of the blade on his waist. He glared at Chu Xiaoyang with his chest heaving up and down, filled with anger. Chapter 1596. After he finished speaking, he left the underground city without even looking back. His white cloak fluttered behind him, making him look like a general. Everyone was shocked by his aura and no one could say anything. Tuoba Zheng flew into a rage. If it wasn't for his personal guards holding on to him, he would have charged out to fight Chu Xiaoyang. Royal Prince, please calm your anger. He is King Chu and the Commander-in-Chief. You are only a vice-general, you can't afford to offend him. A person that looked like a strategist came out and tried to persuade him. Strategist Pang, why are you here? Tuoba Zheng took a few deep breaths and slowly calmed down, but his face was still filled with a fierce expression. He said in a hateful voice, "What a good Chu Xiaoyang. He dares to be a spy, so why would this royal prince be afraid of him? I'll immediately write a letter to royal father. I'll definitely capture this spy and behead him." That strategist Pang quickly said, "Royal Prince, think about it carefully. Actually, what King Chu said is not without reason. Although you have great military merits, great martial arts, and are familiar with the art of war, the Emperor has never placed you in an important position. Even when he sent the army to the west, he only made you a vice-general and gave the command of the army to King Chu. This means that in the Emperor's heart, the person he trusts more is King Chu. If you write a letter to the Emperor now, I'm afraid it will have the opposite effect and make the Emperor angry." Tuoba Zheng angrily said, "Could it be that this prince will just let it go like this? I am a dignified prince, being humiliated by a traitor like this? Sure, royal prince, be quiet. He is now the King Chu that the Emperor has personally bestowed upon him, and he has military power, so you must be lenient with your words. If you are caught, the one who will suffer is the royal prince." Tuoba Zheng was so angry that he almost spat out blood. He lowered his voice and angrily said, "This prince is clearly royal father's son, but in royal father's eyes, I am not even as good as a traitor that just surrendered. Now this prince is wondering if this Chu Xiaoyang is royal father's son or if this royal prince is." That strategist Pang said, "Royal prince, have you forgotten? The Emperor often says that those who win the hearts of the people will win the world. He also says that we should win the world with benevolence, rule the world with virtue, and stabilize the world with propriety. These words show that the Emperor does not like killing and does not like massacring cities. Royal Prince, you have never been placed in an important position because of this." Although that King Chu was rude, what he said might be what the Emperor is thinking. He released the West Chu captives and gave the order not to harm a single citizen in the city. How do you know that wasn't done by the Emperor? Tuoba Zheng immediately stopped struggling and stared blankly at strategist Pang. "You mean that my father doesn't like me because I'm too murderous?" Strategist Pang said, "This is just my conjecture after hearing King Chu's words. But there is some truth to your words. Ever since I asked Royal Father for merit after massacring the city, Royal Father's expression has not been good. Not only did he not reward me, he even reprimanded me a few times. I originally thought that someone was speaking ill of this prince behind his back, but now that I think about it, it turns out to be like this." Tuoba Zheng thought back to his Royal Father's attitude towards him over the years and couldn't help feeling enlightened. Chapter 1597. Strategist Pang said, "Your Highness' words are reasonable, but if the Emperor doesn't like it, then your Highness shouldn't do it anymore. If you lose the Emperor's favor, it will only be disadvantageous to you. This King Chu is highly regarded by the Emperor and he is the commander of the army, so this subordinate suggests that your Highness doesn't make things difficult for him in the future. As long as you listen to his orders, if there is a mistake in the future, it won't be your fault, it will all be his fault. In front of the Emperor, he won't be able to escape his crime. If we can destroy West Chu in one fell swoop, this great merit will not go to your Highness, don't you think so?" It was like the fog in front of Tuoba Zheng's eyes had been lifted and everything became clear. That's right. It's a good thing you reminded this prince in time, otherwise this prince would have made a big mistake. Alright, this prince will listen to that stinky brat for now. After we destroy West Chu, this prince will slowly settle this debt with him. However, this prince still suspects that this brat has bad intentions. He has clearly taken down Southern Pass City, but he has not made a move and is not going to take Shuanglu. It is clear that he wants to give West Chu a chance to catch their breath. This prince will definitely report this matter to Royal Father. I think that even if that Chu Xiaoyang had 100 mouths, he wouldn't be able to defend himself. Your Highness, you should think about it carefully. In my opinion, the King Chu not making a move is not giving the enemy a chance to catch their breath, but rather he is planning something. Look at the past 5 days, the King Chu has been climbing the city walls every day and looking in that direction, which is where Shuanglu City is. He has been practicing every day, perhaps he is waiting for the enemy's reinforcements to arrive and then he can catch them all in one fell swoop? That strategist Pang's eyes turned. He was Tuoba Zheng's military advisor, a resourceful man who had been by Tuoba Zheng's side for 10 years. Tuoba Zheng was valiant, but he was reckless and impulsive. Fortunately, he had been providing advice and advice all these years, which allowed Tuoba Zheng to be invincible in battle. Because of this, Tuoba Zheng had gained Tuoba Zheng's trust. His words had a lot of weight in Tuoba Zheng's heart. Tuoba Zheng suddenly slapped his thigh. "It's a good thing you reminded me. That's right, that Chu Xiaoyang betrayed West Chu and should have become the emperor, but now that the emperor has taken his throne, he should be filled with hatred, so he shouldn't be a spy sent by West Chu. No wonder royal father trusts him so much and even gives him such a heavy responsibility. I was too suspicious. Very good, since he isn't a spy, I'll just bear with him for now." The strategist moved beside him and said in a low voice, "Your Highness, royal father made him the king and sent him to lead troops to attack West Chu, but made you the vice-general. Do you know why?" Tuoba Zheng's eyes widened. He became angry at the mention of this and he said hatefully, "Father must have been deceived by his flowery words." Su Jin's heart moved and she blurted out, "Emperor, did something happen to the Empress?" Emo Chuan did not even look at her and just looked at Empress Dowager Zhou. Emo Chuan's voice was filled with suppressed anger. "Question her? If I could find her, I wouldn't have come here to find Imperial Mother." Although Empress Dowager Zhou didn't give him any news about Qin Ning, it was like a large stone had been placed in Emo Chuan's heart and he became much more relaxed. Teet. What he was most worried about. Teet, teet, teet. Emo Chuan did not believe that there would be someone in the palace who would take Qin Ning away under the eyes of the guards. Even if she was unconscious, it was impossible for anyone to take her out of the palace, unless the guards he sent to the Guan Osprey Palace were all dead people. Not to mention that Emo Chuan did not believe that Qin Ning would fall into someone else's trap. Xiao Ru had slept for 3 days after eating Chen Chen's desserts, which meant that her heart had been drugged and Qin Ning had taken the spirit rhinoceros pill personally made by Gu Qingze, so she was immune to all poisons. Chapter 1605. Emo Chuan was not surprised that Qin Ning would leave the palace, but she had left for 3 days. This was a bit unbelievable. Emo Chuan suddenly thought, could she have gone to the Godly Physician Valley to find Gu Qingze? But this thought was immediately rejected by him. That was impossible. If she wanted to go to the Godly Physician Valley, she wouldn't have let Gu Qingze leave by himself. Not to mention when the South Yu army had just arrived and the southern pass had fallen, the pressure on him had increased, so she wouldn't have left his side. Could she have encountered an accident when she left the palace? But if she left the palace, there would be secret guards following her. Now that the secret guards said they didn't see her leave the palace, it meant that she was still in the palace. Emo Chuan thought about it and decided to go to the Guan Osprey Palace. Perhaps he would find some clues there. He suddenly thought of Zhue Feng at this time. If Zhue Feng didn't escort Gu Qingze to the Godly Physician Valley, if Zhue Feng was still here, he would definitely be able to find her whereabouts. When he entered the Guan Osprey Palace gates, he saw Xiao Ru holding a letter as she quickly ran over. When she saw him, she kneeled down on the ground. "Emperor, this servant has found a letter left by the young miss. Quickly take a look and see what the young miss says. Does she not want this servant anymore? Did she leave by herself?" Xiao Ru said with a sobbing tone. "A letter left by her? Why did you only find out now?" Emo Chuan's heart suddenly skipped a beat and a bad feeling filled his heart. He couldn't help looking at Xiao Ru. He took the letter and impatiently opened the envelope. Opening the letter, he saw a few words written on it. "The marshal has gone to battle." He looked at the words in a daze and couldn't say anything for a while. Xiao Ru looked over at the contents of the letter and her face was filled with confusion. She scratched her head and said, "This is the young miss handwriting, but what does it mean? Did the young miss go to the theater? Did she go to the theater to watch the marshal's war play? This daring girl, if this one catches her, I won't let her off easily." Emo Chuan was stunned for a while. He crumpled the paper into a ball and tightly gripped it in his palm, feeling anxious and angry. Xiao Ru didn't understand the meaning of these words, but he could clearly see it. That girl had gone to the front lines to fight. It turned out that she wasn't joking when she mentioned that she was going to lead the army into battle. She had thought of doing this long ago, so she tried to test him again and again. After being firmly rejected by him, she actually left without saying goodbye. She was too daring. Emo Chuan really wanted to grab her and teach her a lesson. If he didn't beat her up, then he wouldn't be Emo Chuan. But no matter how angry he was, he couldn't stop her. Although Emo Chuan was angry, his heart was in his throat. She didn't know martial arts and was a girl, leaving the capital city alone to go to the front lines. What was she planning to do? Didn't she know that once the war started, the road would not be peaceful? Roving bandits, and brigands would all take advantage of the chaos. Even if she could make it to the front lines safely, against the South Yu army, even the experienced generals he had dispatched had suffered defeats. What good strategy could a weak woman like her have? This lass had conferred a very high official position for herself. Chapter 1606. Emo Chuan was angry and anxious. It was like 100 claws were scratching his heart. Now that he knew where she was going, how could he stay in the palace? Right now, he only wanted to ride on a fine horse and quickly chase after her out of the palace. He wanted to stop her before she reached the front lines and bring her back safely. Someone come. Quickly, prepare a horse for this one. I want the fastest date red horse. Emo Chuan loudly ordered. While saying this, he quickly walked into the palace. He searched the room and found that the snow silk clothes, the hidden weapon peacock tail, and the strange handgun were all gone. That girl, she really left. Emo Chuan hatefully said, but he slightly relaxed a bit. At least she still had a bit of self-awareness and brought these 3 treasures with her. Even if she didn't know martial arts, with her intelligence, adding in the snow silk cloak that couldn't be broken by swords, her body that was immune to poison, and her mysterious hidden weapons and pistol, as long as she didn't meet a top expert, normal Jianghu people wouldn't be able to touch a single hair on her head. Although he let out a sigh of relief, his heart was still hanging high. It had to be known that she had offended an assassin from the Purple Heaven Pavilion, and the rules of the Purple Heaven Pavilion was that they wouldn't stop until they were dead. If an expert from the Purple Heaven Pavilion came out, how could she fight them? What worried him the most was that she wanted to go to the front lines and use her own strength to turn the tide. This kind of idea was simply whimsical. Did she think she was an immortal? Even if she was an immortal, she wouldn't be able to repel 100,000 South Yu army by herself. No. He had to stop her. Emo Chuan walked out of the room with large steps. Xiao Ru threw herself at him and hugged his leg. She cried and said, "Emperor, do you know where the young miss is going? Are you going to find the young miss? Can you bring this servant with you? This servant must find the young miss. This servant is worried that something has happened to her. She promised me that she would never leave me again and that she would bring me with her no matter where she goes, but she didn't bring this servant this time. She must be doing something very dangerous and going to a very dangerous place. This servant said that even if I die, this servant will die with the young miss. I beg the emperor to bring this servant with you, all right?" Emo Chuan looked down at her and firmly said, "Relax, no matter where she goes, no matter how dangerous that place is, I will definitely bring her back safely." His right foot moved and he left Xiao Ru's hand. Then he walked out of the palace gates with large steps, disappearing in front of Xiao Ru in the blink of an eye. Xiao Ru crawled up from the ground and chased after him while crying. When she reached the gates, she saw Emo Chuan's figure. Emo Chuan mounted the date red horse and sped off, heading straight for the palace gates. In his haste, he didn't even have time to change his clothes. He was still wearing that dazzling dragon robe. Along the way, when everyone saw the figure on the horse, they all hurriedly bowed down and knelt on the ground, repeatedly saying, "Long live your majesty." Emo Chuan knit his brows and stopped his horse, not moving forward. No, he couldn't leave the palace like this. He couldn't leave the palace like this. The war between the 2 countries had just begun and the South Yu army was very powerful. They had taken down the southern pass and Shuanglu towns in one fell swoop, and they had also defeated the 3 armies he had sent. It could be said that their morale was high. The South Yu army had won their first battle and the West Chu army had suffered 2 consecutive defeats. Their morale was low and the ministers were all panicking. Chapter 1607. From the day the southern pass was lost, there were many ministers that came to advise Emo Chuan. They advised him to give Chu Xiaoyang a large benefit, allowing him to surrender to West Chu. There were also many people that suggested ceding territory and submitting to South Yu. Even if it was like losing to East Qin in the past, paying tribute every year was better than losing their country. Even if Emo Chuan didn't hear these words 10 times a day, he still heard them 8 times a day. His heart was filled with anger as he angrily scolded the people that came to advise him. But there was still an endless stream of people coming to advise him. Emo Chuan knew what the ministers were afraid of. They were afraid of Chu Xiaoyang, afraid of the South Yu army of 100,000. They were afraid that they would fall into the hands of the South Yu people, losing their positions and lives. But the ministers were afraid, but he was not. Everyone could surrender, but he could not surrender. In this kind of crisis, if he left the capital city, it would cause a large wave in the court. Perhaps everyone would think that he ran away because he was afraid. Those people with ulterior motives could take advantage of the chaos. When the time came, there would be internal and external troubles. West Chu would not have a peaceful day. He couldn't leave. Mo Chuan tightly gritted his teeth as his heart burned. He stood on his horse and looked in the direction of Shuanglu. He gritted his teeth and said, Ning Ning, no matter what, you have to take care of yourself. If you dare come back with a single hair missing, I won't forgive you. He turned his horse around and slowly headed to the royal study. Only his heart was heavy, like with every step he took, he was getting further away from Chen Ning. He suddenly thought of Chu Xiaobai. If Xiaobai was still here, he would definitely be able to bring Chen Ning back safely. Xiaobai, where did you go? Mo Chuan's guess was not wrong. Chen Ning was not kidnapped, rather she had snuck out of the palace. She had already made up her mind to go to the front lines to help, but after several probing attempts she was mercilessly rejected by Mo Chuan. Since it was like this, she could only hide from everyone and sneak away. It just so happened that Mo Chuan had been waiting in the royal study for the past few days, giving her a good chance to sneak away. She just needed to avoid the secret guards that Mo Chuan had arranged to protect her. She knew that this trip was very dangerous, so she couldn't bring Xiao Ru along no matter what. So she put a bit of knockout medicine in the desserts. How could Xiao Ru know that she was eating happily and unknowingly fell asleep? She returned to her room and changed into the eunuch clothes she had prepared. Then she sent a message to Mo Chuan and left the palace without anyone knowing. The hidden guards only saw a little eunuch come out of the Empress bedroom, but they didn't care at all. No one would have thought that this little eunuch would be the disguised Chen Ning. In order to avoid suspicion, Chen Ning left the palace empty-handed. She came to the market and bought a horse and some men's clothes. Then she found an inn to change into. By the time she came out of the inn, she had changed from a little eunuch to an ordinary-looking young man. She was wearing the human skin mask she stole from Mo Chuan, only revealing a pair of crystal-clear eyes. There was no expression on her face, so no one would look at this normal face more than once. This was the effect she wanted. The less attention she attracted, the safer she would be on her journey. Chapter 1608. Chen Ning had seen Mo Chuan's map before, so her destination was very clear. Whipping her horse, she ran over 100 miles in a single breath. She felt her mouth was dry and her stomach was filled with hunger. She saw a mountain stream slowly flowing nearby, so she jumped off the horse and led the horse to the stream. She let the horse eat grass and drink water while she sat on a large rock by the stream. She felt her face was covered in sweat, so she took off her mask and washed her face. Then she began to eat her rations in the stream. After eating 2 mouthfuls of steamed buns, her ears suddenly moved. She heard the sound of a horse in the distance and she couldn't help turning around. He saw a horse galloping over from afar. As it neared, he saw a beautiful girl in plain clothes sitting on the back of the horse. Her long black hair fluttered in the wind like a waterfall. Her face was as charming as a flower, and her eyebrows and eyes were like a painting. Chen Ning's hand that was holding the steamed bun suddenly stopped in midair as she looked at the girl in a daze. Chen? Why is she here? Didn't she also eat the desserts I drugged? The beautiful girl on the back of the horse was the cross-dressing thousand-faced young master. He had already noticed that Chen Ning had drugged his desserts. It had to be known that he was the young master of the Purple Heaven Pavilion, so his assassination methods were top-notch. Although he had lost his martial arts, his eyesight was still there. Adding in the fact that he had been paying attention to Chen Ning's every move, he had noticed something strange with a single glance. But he did not make a sound. He was secretly thinking that the other party had discovered his weakness and recognized his identity, so she used this kind of method to deal with him? He did not put Chen Ning's drugging methods in his eyes at all. Just a sniff was enough to tell that this was the most common drug used in the Jianghu. The amount was not large, it could only make a normal person sleep for 3 to 5 days. But for someone like him who had dealt with all kinds of poisons since he was a child, it was the same as eating pepper, it had no use at all. He ate a few pieces of the desserts and then saw Xiao Ru's eyelids slowly close as she fell asleep on the table. He also closed his eyes and pretended to fall asleep from the drug. He wanted to see what kind of tricks this stinky girl wanted to play. If she wanted to use this opportunity to kill him, then she was gravely mistaken. Although he did not have any martial arts, he still had his fists and legs. Dealing with a weak little girl like her was not a problem at all. As long as she dared to make a move, he would let her know just how strong he was. Who would have thought that after quietly waiting for a while, he discovered that she did not pay attention to him at all. Instead, she hurriedly entered the room, and in a short while she had changed into a little eunuch's attire and came out. The thousand-faced young master was so surprised that he opened his eyes to a slit and secretly sized her up. He couldn't figure out what trick she was playing. Could it be that she wanted to disguise herself as a eunuch to kill him? Then he found that Chen Ning did not even look at him. She just walked to Xiao Ru's side and gently looked at her. Then she softly said, "Good Xiao Ru, wait for me here. I'll be back." Xiao Ru up and walked out. Xiao picked up her and walked. And she walked out. You Xiao Zhao's eyes and walked out. So he quietly stood up and looked out the window. He saw Chen Ning send Xiao Ru back to her room and then put on the little eunuch's clothes as she walked out of the palace gates. The thousand-faced young master's eyes lit up and he couldn't help curling his lips into a smile. The thousand-faced young master's eyes lit up and he couldn't help but smile. Chapter 16:10. She stared at Chen Chen and softly said, "I can't say that I'm good or bad to you. You were sent to the Guan Osprey Palace by the Empress Dowager, so naturally I won't mistreat you. You should return to the palace. I need to do something dangerous and it's not convenient to bring a young girl like you along." Chen Chen immediately looked up with a determined expression. She patted her chest again and quickly made a hand gesture. "The more dangerous it is, the more you want to be with me? You say you'll help me, opening a path in the mountains and building a bridge in the rivers? You say you'll do many things and won't become a burden to me? You say that if I don't bring you along you'll die here?" Her hand gesture was very complicated. Chen Ning looked at it while slowly saying this. Chen Chen forcefully nodded. "No Chen Chen, I won't bring you along. If you want to die then do as you please." Chen Ning's face turned serious as she coldly said this. There was not a trace of emotion in her voice. She did not believe that this beautiful girl would really die. Who knew why she wanted to follow her so she wouldn't bring her along no matter what? Chen Chen's eyes filled with tears. She was like a pear blossom in the rain, looking very pitiful. It was enough to move the heart of any man with a heart of stone. But Chen Ning was not moved at all. She put away the rations and jumped onto the back of the horse. She did not even look at Chen Chen as she continued on her way. She did not believe that Chen Chen would still be so thick-skinned to chase after her cold words. Sure enough, she did not hear the horse's hooves behind her, but she heard a putong sound. It was the sound of a heavy object falling into the water. Water splashed everywhere and there were several drops that fell on the back of her neck, feeling cold to the bone. This is bad. She wouldn't have drowned, right? Chen Ning suddenly turned around and saw that Chen Chen's figure had already disappeared from the shore. There was only the horse she rode leisurely eating grass on the side. As the mountain stream flowed down, there was a plain-clothed girl floating in the water. It was Chen Chen. Her long black hair floated on the water like a glossy black satin. In the blink of an eye, she had already been washed far away by the current. The snow-white clothes on her body mixed with the water as she was carried far away by the current. Chen Chen. Chen Ning gave a cry of surprise. She jumped off the horse and jumped into the water without any hesitation. Never had she imagined that Chen Chen would actually have such a fiery temper and seek death at the slightest disagreement. She's simply too willful. She was skilled in the water. Although the mountain stream was turbulent, she could still swim. She paddled with her arms and swam far away. Finally, she caught a piece of Chen Chen's sleeve. She pulled it tightly and pulled Chen Chen to her side. With great difficulty, she pulled Chen Chen to the shore and placed her on a big rock. She let Chen Chen slowly spit out the water in her stomach while she leaned on the side to catch her breath. Swimming in the mountain stream had consumed a lot of her energy. Whoa! The thousand-faced young master opened his mouth and began to spit out water. After spitting it out for a while, he finally opened his eyes in a daze. He looked at Chen Ning with a grateful expression on his face. Chen said. Chen shihishi. Chen ti, di to Chen iqttb. The thousand-faced young master nodded his head forcefully. The expression on his face was even more resolute. Chapter 16:11. The thousand-faced young master was filled with joy. Although his body was weak, he still struggled to stand up and kowtow to Chen Ning. Stand up, you're not allowed to kowtow to me in the future. We're leaving the palace in plain clothes. I'm not the empress and you're not a servant, do you understand? Chen Ning helped him up. The thousand-faced young master nodded again as his eyes filled with gratitude. Chen Ning saw that their clothes were soaked, so she helped Chen Chen over to where the horses were. She took out 2 sets of clothes from the bag on the horse's back, a set of men's clothes and a set of women's clothes. She had bought these clothes from a clothing store and the material was very normal, it was clothes that normal people would wear. We need to hurry so we can't be too ostentatious. If you follow me you have to be prepared to suffer. You can change into these coarse clothes first. She gave one of the women's clothes to the thousand-faced young master and kept the men's clothes for herself. Chen Ning first changed into the men's clothes behind the rock and put on the human skin mask. This way no one would be able to recognize her. The thousand-faced young master saw her come out from behind the large rock and looked like he was shocked. He bit his lips and made a gesture to her. "That's right, it's me. I'm wearing a mask." Chen Ning nodded and said, "Go change behind the rock, I'll help you keep a lookout." The thousand-faced young master's face turned slightly red and he made another gesture. Chen Ning asked in a strange voice, "You said you're hungry and want to eat steamed buns?" The thousand-faced young master nodded. "Alright, I just happen to have some steamed buns here. If you don't mind you can eat them." Chen Ning took out 2 dry steamed buns and gave them to him. The thousand-faced young master received it like it was a treasure. He took the women's clothes and walked behind the rock. When he came out after changing his clothes, the coarse clothes did not affect his beauty at all. Instead, it made him look even more gentle. "Qian, are you full?" The thousand-faced young master quickly nodded. Chen Ning revealed a faint smile and said, "I can't tell that you're so weak, but your appetite is not small. You actually ate 2 large steamed buns at once. If you're not full there are still steamed buns here." The thousand-faced young master wanted to shake his head, but who would have thought that his stomach would suddenly growl. "Gululu gululu." His lie had been exposed on the spot. His face turned red to his ears and he revealed an extremely embarrassed expression. He had not eaten the 2 steamed buns that Chen Ning had given him and they were currently tied to his chest. As for the steamed bun in front of his chest, it had already been soaked in the stream and he had thrown it into a crack in the rock in disgust. "If you're not full then keep eating. These steamed buns aren't anything good. Here I'll give you." Chen gave him another large steamed bun with a smile. The thousand-faced young master's face turned red as he took the steamed bun and started to chomp down on it. Who knew that the steamed bun was too dry and he ate too quickly? Instantly he choked on it and started coughing. "Eat slowly, there's no need to rush. Come drink some water." Chen Ning placed a water bag in his hand. He drank a few mouthfuls of water before he managed to swallow the steamed bun that was stuck in his throat. He was so embarrassed that he wanted to dig a hole in the ground. Chen Ning. The dignified young master of the Purple Heaven Pavilion actually gluttonously ate a steamed bun and almost choked to death. If this were to spread to the ears of his subordinates, how would he still have the face to show his face? Chapter 16:12. The thousand-faced young master pointed to the sky and pointed to the ground, saying that he would not regret it. Of course he would not regret it. As long as he followed this stinky girl, he would find a chance to make his move sooner or later. She was his target and his prey, how could he regret it? The one who would regret it would only be her. "Alright then let's be on our way." Chen Ning smiled as she jumped onto the horse. The thousand-faced young master also jumped onto the horse and the 2 of them walked one in front and one behind. He was very smart, not asking where Chen Ning was going because asking too much would only make her suspicious. Anyways, no matter where she went he would follow. Chen Ning turned around on the horse and looked over the thousand-faced young master several times. Her thoughtful eyes made the thousand-faced young master's heart filled with panic, thinking that she couldn't have seen through him, right? Could it be that he did not tie his steamed bun properly and it was crooked? He looked down at his chest and saw that it was perfectly fine. It was not crooked or crooked. He looked up and looked at Chen Ning with a questioning gaze. "Chen, you are truly beautiful. Even a simple dress cannot hide your beauty," Chen Ning said with a smile. The thousand-faced young master's face turned red and he made a few gestures, meaning that he was ugly and that the Empress was the true beauty. Chen Ning said with a smile, Chen, did you forget what I said again? We are currently dressed like normal people so you can't call me the Empress anymore. It's a good thing that you can't speak and there are no outsiders around so we didn't get exposed." The thousand-faced young master quickly made gestures in fear, meaning that he knew he was wrong. He had accidentally made a mistake and he would never do it again. Chen Ning said with a smile, Chen, we're traveling together and I'm a woman dressed as a man, so outsiders will think that we're a man and a woman. You're so beautiful and I'm so ordinary, I'm afraid people will think that I'm a human trafficker. It's easy to cause misunderstandings and trouble, but I've thought of a good idea." "What good idea?" The thousand-faced young master's eyes slightly opened wide as he looked at Chen Ning. Chen Ning happily said, How about this? Why don't we pretend to be brother and sister and call each other brother and sister in the future? This way people won't be suspicious. You can call me big brother in the future, what do you think? What? Pretend to be brother and sister? And she wanted him to call her big brother? The thousand-faced young master's eyes opened wide in shock, suspecting that there was something wrong with his ears. This was too ridiculous. Between the two of them, who was the man and who was the woman? He was clearly a man and she was a woman. In terms of age, she was still wet behind the ears and he was several years older than her. She should be calling him big brother. But what qualifications did she have to call him big brother? She wasn't even qualified to be his little brother. If they were in the Purple Heaven Pavilion, he wouldn't even be able to see her from the corner of his eyes. What, Chen Qian, you're not willing? Chen Ning saw that the thousand-faced young master didn't reply for a long time and had a strange expression on his face, so she asked, Chen Qian Qian, Chen. The thousand-faced young master nodded repeatedly and made a shy expression. He lowered his head slightly and called out big brother, in sign language. Calling him big brother was fine. Anyway, no matter what he was called, he would not lose a piece of flesh. Moreover, he was now disguised as a woman. No one would recognize that he was the fearsome young master thousand faces in the pugilistic world. Chapter 16:13. Chen Ning rubbed her chin like a man. Her eyes turned into crescents as she smiled, but no one could see the expression on her face with the human skin mask. I never thought that I, Chen Ning, would receive a beautiful little sister today. Since you call me big brother, I can't let you call me that for nothing, so I have to give you a present. But I came out of the palace in a hurry, so I didn't bring anything valuable. What should I do? The thousand-faced young master quickly made a few gestures, indicating that he did not want a present. As long as he could stay by her side, it would be the best present for him. Present? He did not care about it. Thinking about the purple cloud palace of the thousand-faced young master, there were all kinds of treasures in the world. There were even more treasures than the palace. He was very skilled in sign language, and when he spoke, he was very sweet and honeyed. Chen Ning shook her head and said, Not good, not good. If I don't give this good little sister a present, wouldn't I be letting you call me big brother for nothing? And what should I give you? I got it. Her eyes fell onto a peach tree to the side. At this time, the peach blossoms had all fallen and there were green peaches growing on the tree. She pulled out a dagger from her waist and swung it down. A peach branch fell from her hand and fell into her chest. There was even a small peach on it. The thousand-faced young master looked at her suspiciously and gave a cold laugh in his heart. She wouldn't give this broken peach to him as a present, right? Chen Ning stopped the horse and used the dagger to cut off the rough skin on the peach branch. She began to carefully carve it. After a while, a smooth peachwood hairpin appeared in her hand. Here, this is for you. I hope you like it. She handed the hairpin in her hand to Chen Qian. Thank you, big brother. The thousand-faced young master made a gesture and took the hairpin. His face revealed a surprised and happy expression, but his heart was coldly laughing. What broken wooden hairpin! She actually dared to take it out. But when he looked down, he saw that this hairpin was very beautifully carved. The entire hairpin was smooth and the head of the hairpin was carved into a cloud, with beautiful patterns. Although the material was not worth much, the carving was very good. Moreover, the hairpin was very smooth, so it could be seen that she had put a lot of thought into it. He never thought that this stinky girl would treat him this well. It seemed like he had not revealed any flaws for her to find out. The thousand-faced young master couldn't help feeling proud. He placed the peachwood hairpin in his hair and revealed a sweet smile to Chen Ning. He was in a good mood and this smile made him radiant. He was more beautiful than a flower. No matter who saw him, they would never think that such a beautiful woman was actually a man. Chen Qian, you look really good when you smile. Although Chen Ning was a girl, she was still shocked by his smile. But you can't smile too much. If you keep smiling like this, I'm afraid all the men will be enchanted by you. If they all follow behind our horses, but I'll have to worry about it. The thousand-faced young master embarrassedly withdrew his smile and looked at Chen Ning with a questioning gaze. Worried? What was she worried about? Chen Ning smiled and said, If they all propose to you, wouldn't this big brother have to worry about who to marry you to? You are so beautiful and so good, I must help you choose the best man in the world to be your husband. Only then can I not let down your beauty and your pair of skillful hands. Chapter 16:14. He put on a serious face and did not reveal a trace of a smile. He made a very serious gesture, indicating that he would stay by her side for the rest of his life, not marrying anyone. Chen Ning smiled as she shook the horse's reins and continued to move forward. She said, "That won't do. You're so beautiful, if you don't marry someone, wouldn't you be letting down the good looks that the heavens have given you? But this matter is not urgent. Once we're done, I'll help you deal with it when we return to the palace." The thousand-faced young master shyly lowered his head and urged his horse to follow behind Chen Ning. His eyes flashed with a cold light. "After returning to the palace? I'm afraid you won't be able to return even if you go with your life." The two horses galloped forward one behind the other. Chen Ning did not suspect him at all. She kept her back to him and did not seem to be on guard at all. She was wearing men's clothing and the way she rode the horse was very vigorous. It was impossible to tell that she was a weak and delicate girl. The thousand-faced young master admired her riding skills while revealing a faint smile on his face. Because as long as he was happy, the current Chen Ning would already be a dead person. Now was a very good opportunity. The two of them were very close to each other. The back of her head, neck, and waist were all exposed in front of him. He could hit wherever he wanted. He used one hand to control the reins and the other hand slowly reached into his chest. He felt a hidden weapon that he had never used before. This hidden weapon was placed in a small bamboo tube. It was small and convenient, very inconspicuous. But it had a very nice name. It was called Heavenly Maiden Scattering Flowers. This Heavenly Maiden Scattering Flowers was the newest hidden weapon developed by their Purple Cloud Pavilion. No one had ever used it in the Jianghu before and no one knew of its name. It was personally designed and made by the Purple Cloud Pavilion Master, spending an entire 3 years to successfully develop it. It was very powerful, but the method to make it was very complicated. With the Purple Cloud Pavilion Master's abilities, he could only make one. Now this secret weapon was hidden in his chest. As long as he took it out and gently pressed the switch on the target in front of him, Chen Ning would immediately become a dead person. No one could dodge an attack from the Heavenly Maiden Scattering Flowers. He had personally seen the might of the Heavenly Maiden Scattering Flowers when the Pavilion Master tested it. It was not something that a human could block. Even the gods in the heavens could not do it. His fingers gently stroked the smooth bamboo tube twice, and then quietly took it out again, his hands empty. Now was not the time to use the Heavenly Maiden Scattering Flowers. Especially of this great hidden weapon against a girl who did not know martial arts, it was like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. He was not anxious at all. There would still be opportunities in the future. Moreover, letting her die under the hidden weapon of the Heavenly Maiden Scattering Flowers was simply too kind of her. He would have of this slowly. The smile on the corner of the thousand-faced young master's mouth grew bigger and bigger because he had already thought of a very interesting way to play, and he could not wait to play it. Chen Ning and the thousand-faced young master rushed into a small city before the city gates closed and found an inn to stay in. Seeing Chen Ning come in, he ignored her and said, "This guest, are you staying here?" Chapter 16:15. He was not the only one with this expression. All the guests eating in the main hall of the inn all had stunned expressions. Chen Ning was not surprised by their expressions at all. This was because Chen Chen was right behind her. When the men saw Chen Chen, they all had the same expression. "Shopkeeper, give me 2 rooms. My little sister and I will each have a room." Chen Ning forcefully slammed the table and the shopkeeper came back to his senses, but he was still unwilling to look away from the thousand-faced young master's face. "Yes, yes, yes," he replied, but he was still looking at the thousand-faced young master with an infatuated expression. The thousand-faced young master was stared at by a large group of men and his face turned red. He lowered his head and revealed a shy appearance, but his heart wished he could dig out these men's eyes and feed them to the wild dogs. Damn it! Did he go crazy or did he take the wrong medicine? He actually agreed to the Zhao Rong princess' ridiculous suggestion and disguised himself as a woman. "Shopkeeper, although my little sister is pretty, she is still an unmarried girl. You are already over 50 years old and staring at my little sister like this, isn't that a bit rude? Aren't you afraid that your wife will be jealous?" Chen Ning's 2 fingers tapped on the counter, letting out a clear tapping sound. Instantly, everyone in the hall looked over at the shopkeeper and there was a burst of laughter mixed in. The shopkeeper's face turned red and he quickly looked away. He lowered his head and coughed twice, covering up the awkwardness on his face. "Guest must be joking. This is the key to the upper room, it's upstairs. Guest please." He personally led Chen Ning and the thousand-faced young master upstairs. "Chen Chen, you can stay in this room, I'll stay next to you. If there's anything, just call Big Brother. Rest early, we still have to leave tomorrow morning." Chen Ning pointed at one of the upper rooms and said. The thousand-faced young master looked up at her and made a gesture. His meaning was, "Big brother, aren't you hungry?" Ning was suddenly enlightened. She remembered that she had been on the road for an entire day and had only eaten 2 steamed buns, so she was naturally hungry. "Shopkeeper, bring us a few of your specialty dishes and a pot of fragrant tea. The sooner the better." The shopkeeper was currently looking at the thousand-faced young master. His eyes were staring at his orchid like fingers in a daze. Hearing Ning's words, he quickly replied, "Yes, yes, yes, there are good dishes. 2 guests, please wait a moment, this old man will immediately send them over." The thousand-faced young master rolled his eyes and shook his head. He made a few more gestures. The shopkeeper suddenly realized that the beauty in front of him that was like a fairy was actually mute and couldn't speak. He gave a regretful sigh, but he couldn't understand what the thousand-faced young master was doing, so he looked at Ning. Ning said in a surprised voice, "You said you don't want the restaurant's dishes, you want to cook?" The thousand-faced young master nodded. Chen, we've been on the road for an entire day, you must be very tired. It will be very hard for you to cook, so how about we make do with a meal?" The thousand-faced young master forcefully shook his head and made a few gestures. He meant that he was not afraid of hard work and was not tired at all. Moreover, he had said that he would take care of her, so he had to let her eat delicious food. Finally, he made a few gestures. "You don't want me to cook, is it because you think the food I make tastes bad? You don't want to eat it?" Chapter 16:16. That delicate and pitiful appearance made the shopkeeper's old heart beat faster and his mouth go dry. He felt that as long as this beauty didn't cry, he would be willing to die for her. "Miss, don't cry, don't cry. What do you want? As long as you say it, even if it's the stars in the sky, I'll pluck them for you." He blurted out, but then he realized that this beauty was mute. He quickly looked at Ning. "This little brother, does your little sister want to cook? This is very easy, we can lend our kitchen to her. She can use it however she wants," he generously said. The thousand-faced young master revealed a happy expression as he made a gesture of thanks to the shopkeeper. "All right, if you like it, then go make it. After eating the dishes you made, the other dishes are a bit hard to swallow," Ning said with a smile. Thus, the thousand-faced young master happily followed the shopkeeper downstairs. Not long after, waves of fragrance began to drift out of the inn. This fragrance made the guests in the inn unable to sit still. They all used their noses to take a deep breath and swallowed large mouthfuls of saliva at the same time. There were even some people who began to look in the direction of the kitchen with drooling looks on their faces. "How fragrant! How fragrant! Waiter, your inn actually has this kind of good chef that can make such good dishes. Quickly bring the dishes for this young master. This fragrance is already so tempting, the taste of the dishes must not be bad. You bastard, you clearly have a good chef, but you're giving this young master horse food that tastes like rancid water. Do you still want to keep this in?" Some people smelled the fragrance and looked at the food in front of them. They felt that it was bland and hard to swallow. They were filled with anger and directly threw the plate at the waiter. The waiter smiled apologetically and said, "I'm really sorry, dear customers. The one cooking is not the chef of this restaurant, but a girl who lives in this restaurant. She borrowed the kitchen of this restaurant to cook, and the dishes she makes are not for sale. Please forgive us." "What? It's a guest girl? Could it be the fairy-like girl who came upstairs just now?" Someone immediately asked with wide eyes. That's right, it's that girl," the waiter said with a nod. All the guests began to discuss this. "I never thought that not only would that girl be beautiful, she would also have such good cooking skills. I really don't know who has the fortune to marry such a beautiful girl. Stop dreaming, you favous-headed man. That girl looks like a fairy. She would marry anyone but you, favous-headed Asan. So what if I'm a bastard? If that girl doesn't like me, does that mean she likes you? Humph. My family is full of money. As long as I take out the shining silver, I don't believe that this beautiful lady won't be tempted. Look at her, she's dressed so shabbily and she even has a wooden hairpin on her head. She's as poor as a grandmother. Waiter, come here and tell that fairy beauty that I, your master, have taken a fancy to her and want her to be my 13th concubine. Ask her to name a price. As long as she can name a price, your master will be able to pay for it. However many gold ingots she wants, I, your master, will give her as many as she wants. Take this gold ingot and give it to her to buy the dishes she just cooked. 1 gold ingot for 1 dish? I don't believe I can't eat the dishes made by this fairy-like girl." Chapter 16:17. Everyone's eyes lit up as they stared right at the ingot. Even the attendant was greatly shocked, and he was extremely astounded in his heart. My God! This ingot was worth 50 silver coins, which was equal to 1,000 silver coins. This rich old master actually said that he could get as much as he wanted, and he even said that he could buy a dish with 1 ingot. He was truly too rich. The waiter held the gold ingot like he was holding a golden phoenix. He ran to the kitchen and repeated the middle-aged merchant's words word for word. After he finished, he added, "Miss, this is a good thing that fell from the sky, others can't even beg for it. That official Lu often comes here to do business, it can be said that his family is very wealthy. Miss, you really met a noble person when you go out. If you really marry official Lu and become his 13th concubine, you will be able to wear gold and silver for the rest of your life, enjoying endless glory and wealth." He placed the ingot in front of the 1,000-faced young master with a face filled with envy. The 1,000-faced young master did not even look at the ingot. He knit his brows and revealed a look of disgust. He gave a cold laugh in his heart. Where did this stinky bug come from, actually wanting to use gold and silver to smash him? Would he even put this kind of stinky thing in his eyes? The waiter immediately said, "Miss, do you think the money is too little? Official Lu said that this ingot of gold will only buy a dish from this miss. Miss, even if you don't like official Lu, you can still sell a dish to him. This ingot of gold is worth 1,000 silver coins. Even if this little one were to work as a waiter for a lifetime, I wouldn't be able to earn 1,000 silver coins." The 1,000-faced young master almost smashed the dish in his hand onto the head of this talkative waiter. He forcefully glared at the other side. Thinking of Chen Ning upstairs, he suppressed his anger and did not explode, but he was so angry that his chest was heaving up and down. The waiter was stunned. He stared at the 2 buns tied to his chest, not moving his eyes at all. "What are you looking at? If you keep looking, I'll dig out your eyes." The 1,000-faced young master angrily cursed in his heart. He really wanted to throw out a hidden weapon and turn all these men into blind men. With a thought, his right hand reached into his chest and took out a small bottle. He sprinkled some powder on the dish that had just been taken out and gave it to the waiter, taking the ingot of gold. Humph, he wanted to eat his own cooking. Alright, then he would let that blind man have a taste of his power. "Miss, you agree to sell this dish to Lu official?" The waiter came back to his senses and said in a surprised and happy voice. The 1,000-faced young master nodded and impatiently pointed out, indicating for the waiter to leave. Because of this disgusting matter, he lost the good mood to cook. The waiter brought the dish over to Lu official Lu's table. This time, everyone's attention was attracted by this dish, and they all looked at Lu Yuanwei with envy. There were also people who felt that he was really stupid. He actually spent a gold ingot to buy a dish. If this wasn't being stupid, then what was? "Ha ha, I thought it was some amazing dish, but it's just a plate of tofu." "Aha, I was wondering what kind of amazing dish it was. It's just a plate of tofu." "You didn't see wrong, it really is tofu. There's no mistake, it really is tofu. If you don't believe me, go and see for yourself." Chapter 16:18. He had spent 1,000 taels of silver to buy a plate of tofu? If word of this got out, wouldn't he become the biggest joke in the world? No, he had already become a joke. Everyone was looking at him as if they were looking at an idiot, which made Lu Yuanwei's face burn with embarrassment. His face immediately darkened as he slammed the table and shouted, "Waiter, how dare you? How dare you lie to me?" The waiter jumped in fright and hurriedly said, "Squire Lu, even if I had 120 guts, I wouldn't dare lie to you." "You didn't lie to me? I spent a gold ingot to buy a dish made by that immortal lady, and you brought me a plate of tofu? Do you think I'm an idiot?" Squire Lu angrily slammed the table and glared at the waiter. The waiter relaxed and laughed. "Squire Lu, calm down, I really didn't lie to you. This plate of tofu was really made by that immortal lady. I saw it with my own eyes, it's definitely not fake. Smell this fragrance, although it's just a plate of tofu, I've never smelled such fragrant tofu in my entire life." As soon as he finished speaking, all the customers in the hall began to sniff. "Oh, it smells so good. This tofu smells so strange. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would have thought it was roasted deer tail or bear paw." Squire Lu forcefully sniffed and the anger on his face disappeared. The waiter was right, he had eaten delicacies his entire life, but he had never smelled such fragrant tofu. "It smells good, I wonder how it will taste in my mouth." He picked up the soup and scooped a piece of tender tofu into his mouth, but when he thought about how he had spent 1,000 taels of silver to buy such an unremarkable plate of tofu, even though he was rich and overbearing, he still felt his heart ache. He felt like he had made a fool of himself again. Who would have thought that as soon as the tofu entered his mouth, The fresh, fragrant, tender, and smooth texture exploded on the tip of his tongue. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have thought he was eating shark's fin, abalone, bear paw, or other delicacies. This is really tofu? It's simply too delicious. I've never eaten such delicious tofu in my entire life. After tasting the deliciousness of the tofu, Squire Lu couldn't help but continuously scoop up the tofu from the plate and take large bites, praising it as he ate. That gluttonous appearance of his with beaming eyebrows and beaming eyes shocked everyone. Squire Lu, is this tofu really that delicious? The waiter swallowed his saliva and couldn't help but ask. The other customers also felt hungry, very hungry. They rubbed their growling stomachs and stared at the plate of tofu that was about to be swept clean by Lu Yuanwei. They really wanted to have a taste of it. Squire Lu was also eating like a tornado. He was even licked clean of the tofu. Squire Lu's stomach. Squire Lu was like a cloud. He even licked it. Squire Lu gobbled up the entire plate of tofu like a whirlwind sweeping away the clouds. He even licked the soup off the bottom of the plate, but he still looked as if he hadn't had enough. Waiter, go and buy me a dish as well. As long as it's made by that lady, I don't care what it is. Chapter 16-19. The waiter stuck his tongue out and couldn't retract it for a long time. The customer glared at him. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and go. Yes. The waiter carried the gold ingots and was about to leave when he was stopped by a few people. Wait, I also want to eat that lady's cooking. Here's 1,000 taels of silver notes. Hurry up and serve my dishes. I want the immortal lady's cooking. The faster the better. Hurry. Me too. It's just 1,000 taels of silver for a dish. Do you think I can't afford it? Waiter, come and collect the money. In the blink of an eye, the waiter's arms were filled with gold ingots and silver notes. He was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped. There were so many rich fools these days. 1,000 taels of silver for a dish? They didn't even blink their eyes. Squire Lu couldn't sit still any longer. There were so many people fighting over food with him. Why didn't they take a piss and look at themselves, wanting to eat the immortal lady's cooking? They weren't worthy. Thus, his face darkened and he shouted, Waiter, do you have a reply to the lady I asked you to ask? The waiter was stunned for a moment, then remembered that he had forgotten about this matter. He hurriedly said, Please wait a moment, Squire Lu. I'll go and listen to the lady's reply. He ran towards the kitchen with a pile of silver notes in his hands. As soon as he entered the door, he excitedly shouted, Miss, you really met a noble and rich man. Squire Lu is full of praise for your cooking. Many customers are willing to pay 1,000 taels of silver to buy your cooking. Again. The thousand-faced young master was enraged. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He had spent a lot of effort to cook this dish for his prey, not for those fat pigs to spoil. He looked at the waiter expressionlessly. That cold gaze made the waiter suddenly feel a chill run down his spine. He couldn't help but shiver. He thought to himself, how did this girl's gaze become so scary? His legs started to tremble uncontrollably. His first thought was to run away. Lady, don't be angry. If you don't want to sell, then don't sell. It's up to you. He stuttered, his tongue knotted. He started to run, but just as he reached the door, he suddenly remembered Squire Lu's words. He could only turn back and ask boldly, Lady, Squire Lu wants to take you as his 13th concubine. Are you willing? Before he could say the word, I'm willing, something in the air suddenly flew over and stuffed his mouth with a pew sound. He felt a spicy smell. He quickly dug out the thing in his mouth. It was a head of garlic. Lady, don't be angry. The waiter was frightened by the baleful aura emitted from the thousand-faced young master and did not dare to say a word as he ran away with his tail between his legs. He came to the front hall and returned the ingots and silver notes to the customers, not daring to say that the immortal lady had suddenly become as scary as a demon. He only said that the lady was not willing to cook again. When the other customers heard this, they looked at Squire Lu with envy and jealousy, not understanding how this fat guy could be so lucky to be able to eat a dish made by the immortal lady. Waiter, come here. Chapter 16-20. This. The waiter awkwardly looked at Lu Yuanwei as he stuttered. What this and that? Hurry up and say it. This official does not believe that this young lady has eyes but cannot see. She would rather be a poor country bumpkin than enjoy such a great life. Go tell her this official is willing to. Lu Yuanwei's words came to an abrupt stop. He felt his eyelids suddenly jump, and then both of his eyelids began to wildly jump. He simply could not control it. The waiter could not help but take a step back as he looked at him in fear. Lu Yuanwei, what's wrong? Your eyes? What's wrong? It was not just his eyelids. Lu Yuanwei felt the muscles on his face begin to violently tremble. His loose skin was like a sieve. I. He opened his mouth and found that his tongue was not working, so it began to wildly jump in his mouth as well. He involuntarily stood up and raised his hands. Twisting his fat waist, he began to stagger around the hall. His fat appearance made him look like a fat duck. Lu Yuanwei, what's wrong? Are you okay? The waiter's eyes widened in shock as he looked at Lu Yuanwei with a stunned expression. Lu Yuanwei acted as if he did not hear anything. His eyes were dull as he struggled to shake his fat butt. As he spun around, he jumped, and as he jumped, he took off his clothes. In just a short while, he was only wearing a pair of bull-nose shorts, revealing his fat white belly. Barefoot, he had no sense of shame as he happily danced around in front of everyone. The nearby guests all burst out in laughter. Cheers, screams, and whistles filled the air. Good dance, jump again. Turn around, yes, turn around like this. Roll on the ground. Roll on the ground. Lu Yuanwei was very obedient as he clumsily rolled on the ground. This made the crowd laugh even louder. The shopkeeper and the waiter were dumbfounded. They were all wondering if Squire Lu had gone insane. Otherwise, how could he suddenly become like this? Quickly help Lu Yuanwei to his room and then quickly find the best doctor in the city to take a look at Lu Yuanwei. The shopkeeper was afraid that things would get out of hand and quickly urged the waiter. Several waiters rushed forward and helped Lu Yuanwei, who was rolling on the ground, up. Lu Yuanwei, you're tired, go back to your room and rest. Squire Lu was still struggling with all his might. His mouth was shouting something, but no one could hear what he was shouting. The waiters used all their strength to subdue Lu Yuanwei and send him to his room. Only then did the farce come to an end. However, Lu Yuanwei was pressed down on the bed by several waiters, unable to move. His eyes were wide open and he struggled with all his might. His eyeballs were about to pop out and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked like a ferocious beast that was about to devour him. Lu Yuanwei, what's wrong? Just wait a little longer, the doctor will come and take a look at your illness soon. One of the waiters said while trembling with fear. Lu Yuanwei suddenly opened his mouth and let out a roar. In an instant he became extremely strong and broke free from the waiter's hands. He grabbed another waiter and opened his mouth, revealing his white teeth as he bit down on the waiter's ear. Chapter 16:21. Crazy. Steward Lu has gone crazy. Everyone panicked and they all moved far away from Steward Lu. Lu Yuanwei jumped from the bed to the floor, hugged a table leg and began to chew on it. Yummy, yummy, he mumbled as he nibbled. When everyone saw this scene, they were all scared stiff. Outside the window, the thousand-faced young master coldly looked away and left with an expressionless face. Humph, those who offend this young master will never have a good ending, he said hatefully in his heart. He held a tray in his hand and there were 4 dishes on it. The fragrance filled the air as he slowly walked towards Chen Ning's room. When he came to the door, he gently knocked on it twice. The cold glow in his eyes instantly disappeared and his cold and emotionless face suddenly changed into a gentle expression. It was like he was a completely different person from before. Chanshan, you finished cooking? It smells so good, it must be delicious. It's just too hard on you. Chen Ning opened the door. Seeing the dishes on the tray, her eyes lit up. The thousand-faced young master gave a gentle smile and walked into the room. He placed the dishes on the table and made a gesture to show that it was not hard on her. Then he indicated for her to have a taste of the dishes. I heard that there was a lot of noise downstairs. Do you know what happened? Chen Ning raised her chopsticks and prepared to eat. She suddenly looked up at Chanshan and asked. The thousand-faced young master nodded like nothing had happened. He took out the gold ingot from his chest and placed it on the table. He made a few gestures. Chen Ning's eyes opened wide and she said in a stunned voice, You're saying that someone is willing to pay a gold ingot to buy one of your dishes? The thousand-faced young master nodded again. Chen Ning said with a smile, I never thought that the dishes you make would be this popular. It seems like bringing you was the right choice. If we run out of money in the future, as long as Chanshan makes a few dishes, we'll have a lot of money. The thousand-faced young master had a serious expression as he shook his head and made a few gestures. Who do they think they are? They don't deserve to eat the dishes I make. I only make them for you, and as long as you like my dishes, I will make them for you for a lifetime. Although he didn't say anything, his eyes clearly expressed his meaning. Chen Ning looked at him and was a little surprised. Chanshan, you want to make dishes for me for a lifetime? The thousand-faced young master forcefully nodded. No matter where you go, I will follow you. The dishes I make will only be for you to eat. Don't abandon me and not want me." He was making hand gestures while looking at Chen Ning with his clear eyes. That gaze was enough to make any man in the world break into pieces. Although Chen Ning was a girl, she was almost melted by his eyes. She was moved as she said, Chen, why do you treat me so well? You are so good, how can I not abandon you and not want you?" The thousand-faced young master lowered his eyes shyly and raised his hand to narrate. His movements were as graceful as a white magnolia that was slowly blooming. "You are the person who treats me the best in this world. My background is lowly, but you are the high and mighty Empress, but you do not look down on me at all. From then on, I decided to follow you for the rest of my life, to be your ox or horse, to be your slave or servant." Chapter 16:22. The thousand-faced young master's eyes revealed a look of endless joy. He pointed at the dishes on the plate and raised his long eyelashes, looking at Chen Ning with a questioning gaze. Chen Ning said with a faint smile, "The dishes you make must be very delicious." She picked up a chopstick and slowly brought it to her mouth. The thousand-faced young master looked at her without blinking, his eyes filled with anticipation. He had added a special medicinal powder to these 4 dishes. It was the same as the one he had added to the tofu in Yuan Wai Lu's plate. As long as she ate it, she would soon become like Lu Yuan Wai and do something that would make her look bad. Very soon she would be performing a striptease in public, under the watchful eyes of the multitude. It would be a most amusing and splendid spectacle. He revealed a calm smile, preparing to watch a good show. Chen, don't just look at me. You've been tired for so long, so you must be hungry. Let's eat together." Chen Ning placed a pair of chopsticks in the thousand-faced young master's hand. She placed the food on the chopsticks into a small bowl and placed it in front of him. She wasn't eating? Why wasn't she eating? Did she see that he had done something to the food? The thousand-faced young master stared at the food in his bowl. It was like a duck that was about to be eaten had suddenly flapped its wings and flown away. "Quickly eat." Chen Ning smiled as she looked at him. The thousand-faced young master had a guilty conscience. His first reaction was that she wasn't eating because she was suspicious of him. All right, then he would eat it for her to see. He had added a special medicinal powder to the food, so naturally he had the antidote. The thousand-faced young master nodded. He picked up the food in his bowl and elegantly placed it in his mouth, slowly chewing it. Speaking of this, the medicine in the food was personally made by him and it was very strong. If he didn't take the antidote, even he wouldn't be able to take it. He ate the food while silently reaching his left hand into his chest, touching the antidote bottle. "Ayo!" Suddenly Chen Ning gave a surprised cry, scaring the thousand-faced young master. He thought that his little action had been discovered by her and his left hand trembled. It slipped out of his chest and his eyes went wide as he looked at Chen Ning. "Cockroach. Chen, there's a cockroach in this room." Chen Ning revealed a look of panic. She pointed at a corner of the room and cried out, "Cockroach?" He thought she was amazing. He never thought that she would be afraid of a little bug. The thousand-faced young master gave a contemptuous snort in his heart. He stood up and walked in the direction Chen Ning was pointing. Sure enough, he saw a cockroach crawling in the corner. He did not hesitate as he stretched out his foot and crushed the cockroach into a corpse. He then turned to Chen Ning with a smile and made a gesture. "I said I would protect you, don't be afraid." Chen Ning let out a sigh of relief and said, Chen, you really are brave. It's a good thing you're here." Chen Ning let out a sigh of relief and said of heart. Killing cockroach Chen was Chen of courage? Of cold. The thousand-faced young master sneered in his heart and said in sign language, "Let's eat. The dishes won't taste good if they get cold." Chen Ning nodded and sat down in front of the table. She picked up a piece of vegetable and placed it in her mouth. The thousand-faced young master held his breath and looked at her without blinking. Of Chin. Of Chin, Chin. Ning Ling Chin of Chin, he was, bug. He of Ling Long. Chapter 16:23. He took a look at the table and saw that there was indeed a green soybean worm lying on the vegetable. Damn. Why didn't he find this bug when he was cooking? It was all because of this damn bug that he had ruined his good deeds. The thousand-faced young master wanted to vomit blood, but he revealed an apologetic expression. He threw the vegetable into the trash can and pointed at the other 3 dishes. He gestured, indicating that these 3 dishes would not have bugs on them. All right. Chen Ning nodded and reached for the sweet and sour pork ribs with her chopsticks. The thousand-faced young master revealed a faint smile. He had added more powder to this sweet and sour pork than the other dishes. As long as she ate a piece of pork ribs, it was guaranteed that she would be poisoned. She would be like that steward Lu dancing for him to see. Chen Chen, I remember that you liked this dish the most in the palace. Come, this pork rib has the most meat so you can eat this. Chen Ning picked up a piece of pork rib. She did not bring it to her mouth but rather placed it in Chen Chen's bowl. Then she revealed a sweet smile to him. The thousand-faced young master almost spat it out. What was this girl trying to do? He had spent so much effort to make this dish, but she did not even eat a single bite. Alright, didn't she not trust him? If she suspected that he had done something to the dish, then he would eat it for her to see. He picked up the pork rib and placed it in his mouth to vent his anger. Chen Chen, eat slowly. I know you're hungry, but a girl should be more refined when eating pork ribs. If a man saw you wolfing it down like this, he wouldn't dare marry you. Chen Ning smiled as she teased him. The thousand-faced young master's face turned red. This young master was a man. If any man had any ideas about this young master would send them off with a single slash. He finished the pork rib in 2 or 3 bites and wiped his hands. He personally picked up a piece of pork rib and placed it in front of Chen Ning, revealing a shy expression. I've been on the road all day, so I'm a bit tired. I don't want to eat this greasy meat. Chen Chen, since you like it so much, then eat another piece. Chen Ning smiled as she pushed the pork rib in front of him. She picked up a piece of minced meat tofu for herself. Alright, she didn't want to eat the pork rib. She could eat the tofu as well, but the tofu was also poisoned by him. The thousand-faced young master gritted his teeth and picked up the rib to eat. He watched as Chen Ning ate the tofu and his heart filled with joy. This girl finally ate it. Chan Chan, your tofu is really delicious. It's like stuffing shark fins into it. None of the chefs in the imperial kitchen can compare to you. Chen Ning really liked the minced meat tofu. She ate several pieces in one go and praised, the tofu is fresh and smooth, the soup is rich, and the taste is very delicious. It would be great if I could eat your tofu every day. The thousand-faced young master revealed a smile, a very happy smile. He said in a sign as he said it, as long as you like it, I can eat. Seeing you stripped naked and dance in front of me every day, haha, do you like it? This young master is looking forward to it. He gnawed on the ribs while looking at Chen Ning with an expectant gaze. She had eaten so many pieces of tofu, shouldn't the medicine take effect by now? When the medicine took effect, he would open the door and let all the guests come in to see the ugly appearance of their West Chu Empress. Chapter 1624. Ha 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 ha. He thought he was laughing in his heart, but he found that this wild laughter actually came from his own mouth. In that instant, his eyes opened wide in shock as he looked at Chen Ning, who also had a shocked expression on her face. Chan Chan, you can laugh? You're laughing out loud? Chen Ning stared at him and muttered in a voice filled with disbelief. Damn it, why did I laugh out loud? The thousand-faced young master was even more shocked than Chen Ning. He desperately wanted to close his mouth, but he could not control the muscles on his face at all. Not only did he open his mouth, he revealed his snow-white teeth and his laughter became louder and louder. Not only that, but he also felt his heart sway and his blood boil. He just wanted to dance with joy. He threw away his chopsticks and slowly stood up. He raised his hands and swayed his waist, making all kinds of enchanting movements. He even gave Chen Ning a flirtatious look. Chen Ning was stunned seeing this. She said in a stunned voice, Chan Chan, what's wrong with you? The thousand-faced young master acted like he did not hear anything. He continued to dance while taking off his clothes. His right hand hooked onto his belt and threw it far away. He gave Chen Ning a charming smile. His fingers were like an orchid as he slowly undid the clothes in front of his chest. Oh, quickly stop. The thousand-faced young master shouted out in his heart. He knew what was wrong with him. He only cared about letting Chen Ning eat, but he had forgotten that he had also eaten quite a few ribs that had been poisoned. Because he was too proud, he had forgotten to take the antidote. Now that the drug had taken effect, even he could not control his own actions. His heart was already anxious to the point of vomiting blood, but not a single part of his body obeyed the will of his brain. With a wave of his right hand, he had already taken off his outer clothes, revealing a full chest and a slender waist. With another light twist, the long skirt tied around his waist also fell to the ground, revealing 2 long, straight, white and slender beautiful legs. Chan Chan, are you crazy? Chen Ning was already stunned by what she saw. The thousand-faced young master wanted to find a pillar to smash his head into, but the drug had taken effect and he could not control himself. He revealed a dazed smile as he began to take off his underwear. As long as he took off his underwear, the two large white buns in front of his chest would be revealed. The thousand-faced young master was going crazy. He had worked hard for so long and covered it up for so long, but because of a small mistake the truth would be revealed. As long as the truth was revealed, he would not have a chance to stay by her side. With her intelligence, she would immediately see through his disguise as a man and immediately connect it to his purpose of getting close to her. He thought of the terrifying methods she had used against him and his heart filled with a cold shiver. It's over, it was all over. He could not help revealing a look of despair. Suddenly, a blanket covered him from head to toe. Chen Ning had noticed that something was wrong and wrapped him up in the blanket, preventing him from being exposed any further. But the thousand-faced young master was completely controlled by the drug and he desperately struggled in the blanket. Although he did not have any internal energy, he suddenly became very strong. Chen Ning felt that she could not control him at all. Qian, don't blame me. This is for your own good. Chapter 1625. Peng. A muffled sound rang out. The thousand-faced young master's eyes turned black and he didn't know anything else. After an unknown amount of time he finally woke up. He felt a splitting headache like he had suffered a heavy blow. He couldn't help letting out a painful groan. Qian, are you awake? Is your headache better? Before the thousand-faced young master opened his eyes, he heard a clear and melodious voice above his head. That voice was like flowing water, it was indescribably pleasant to listen to. He subconsciously muttered, "Head. So painful." When the words came out he didn't believe it was his own voice. It was rough and hoarse just like the cry of a crow. "I'll apply some more medicine for you," the voice said. Very quickly he felt a cool sensation on his forehead. A soft finger was gently applying the ointment. The movement was very gentle and the cool ointment had a faint sweet fragrance, smelling very good. He took in a few deep breaths and felt that his head wasn't that painful anymore. Moreover, his consciousness was slowly recovering. This is bad. I've been exposed. This was the first thought that flashed through his mind after he regained consciousness. The thousand-faced young master's body trembled and he subconsciously touched the steamed bun on his chest. After touching it, he found that he wasn't naked and was still wearing clothes. The two steamed buns were still tied to his chest. What was going on? Could it be that she still hadn't discovered his secret? He remembered what had happened before he fainted. He remembered that at the most crucial moment she had charged over and wrapped him in a blanket before knocking him out with a stool. How lucky. The stool was just too timely. The thousand-faced young master's heart was filled with gratitude towards Chen Ning. This was the first time he felt sincere gratitude towards the person who had beaten him, even he found it hard to believe. But following that he heard Chen Ning's voice. It was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head, making his body tremble. Qian, you're awake? Open your eyes, I have something to ask you. Tell me you can clearly speak, so why did you pretend to be a mute? Her voice was very strict, the gentleness from before had completely disappeared. The thousand-faced young master finally realized that when he was being controlled by the drug, he had let out a loud laugh. When his consciousness began to recover, he had actually forgotten that he had been pretending to be a mute and had opened his mouth to speak. I. He knew that this was the most crucial moment. If he didn't explain it clearly, she would suspect him even more. The thousand-faced young master's eyes turned and he had already thought of a good reason. He slowly opened his eyes and saw Chen Ning with a single glance. She was currently looking at him with a stern expression. Her eyes were like a mirror, clearly reflecting his face, making him feel like he could not hide anything. It was like the secrets in his heart had been seen through by her with a single glance. Impossible. He, the thousand-faced young master, was unparalleled in the world in disguise. She was just a little girl who was still wet behind the ears, so she would definitely not be able to see through his disguise. His eyelashes fluttered, and then a layer of tears appeared at the bottom of his eyes, as if he was about to cry. Nyang, it was Qian who lied to you. Qian isn't actually mute, but. He tried to prop himself up, but his arms went limp. Just as he was about to straighten himself up, he fell heavily back onto the bed. Chapter 1626. This girl looked very hard to deal with. If he was the slightest bit careless, she would see through him. The thousand-faced young master had already prepared a script. He knew that the best and most natural performance was to reveal his true feelings. If he acted, there would definitely be a flaw. He laid on the bed and looked right at Chen Ning. Then he gave a sigh and looked away. He looked at a corner with an incomparably bitter expression. Empress, Chen knows that no matter what I say you won't believe me because I lied to you. Now that you've discovered this secret, you won't want me by your side anymore. This matter is indeed Chen's fault. Chen shouldn't have lied to the Empress. Empress, please leave. I know you must hate me right now because although I have a pretty face, I have this kind of ugly voice. Whenever I hear my ugly voice, I want to die. He tightened his voice and the voice that came out was hoarse and ugly to listen to. After saying this, he closed his eyes and 2 large drops of tears fell down his face. This method of retreating in order to advance was very effective. Ning was moved by his sad and moving appearance. The expression on her face was no longer as stern and her voice became a bit gentler. Chen, when did I say I hate you? I just want to know why you're pretending to be mute. Is it because your voice is ugly to listen to? This matter is indeed very strange. You're so beautiful but your voice is like a man's. However, this isn't a flaw. Actually, your voice isn't as ugly as you think it is, it's just a bit deep. No, Empress, you don't need to comfort me. Chen knows that my voice is very ugly to listen to, just like a black crow. However, I didn't want it to be like this. I was harmed by someone. The thousand-faced young master suddenly opened his eyes and his face couldn't help revealing an excited and angry expression. Harmed by someone? Tell me who harmed you. Ning's expression changed once again. The thousand-faced young master tightly clenched his hand. His expression was filled with pain, like he was thinking of an unbearable past. He shook his head. Forget it, it's fine if we don't talk about it. This matter has already happened for many years and I've already forgotten about it. Chen, you've suffered in the past, right? If you're willing you can tell me everything. Ning sincerely said as if she had guessed something. Chapter 1627. When the thousand-faced young master said this, his throat choked up and he couldn't say anything else. Large drops of tears began to fall from the corner of his eyes. So it's like this. So you didn't want others to look at you strangely, so you pretended to be a mute, right? Ning was suddenly enlightened. She looked at the thousand-faced young master with sympathy and gave a sigh before saying, Chen, I never thought that someone as beautiful as you would encounter this kind of tragedy. You must hate your sister, right? The thousand-faced young master said in a low voice, I don't know if I hate her or not, but from then on, I didn't dare trust anyone in this world. No matter who it was, I didn't dare trust them. I always felt that they treated me well, but in the blink of an eye, they would mercilessly hurt me, so I pretended to be a mute. I thought that as long as I didn't speak and they saw that I was a mute, they wouldn't harm me out of jealousy. Afterwards, when I entered the palace and met the Empress, I knew that the Empress truly treated me well. In this world, only you wouldn't harm me, you truly treated me well. Chen was only a lowly servant. Other than cooking, you didn't look down on me because I was a mute. You let Xiaoru take care of me like a sister, making new clothes for me and making new jewelry for me. Xiaoru was your personal maid, but you treated Chen and Xiaoru the same way. Although I was only in the palace for a few short days, I had never felt such warmth in my life. Empress, from that moment on, Chen made up my mind to follow you for the rest of my life. If you blame me for deceiving you and don't want me, then Chen will just die. He looked up and his eyes revealed a determined look. His voice was low and deep, but his tone was firm without any hesitation at all. Ning couldn't help saying, Chen, don't always say you want to die. When did I say I don't want you? Not to mention that you didn't deliberately deceive me, you have your own difficulties. She pondered for a bit. All right, since you're determined to follow me, then I'll tell you a few things. Do you know where I'm going this time? Of course he didn't know. The thousand-faced young master shook his head and said, no matter where the Empress goes, Chen will follow. Even if it's a dragon's lair or a tiger's lair, Chen will not regret it and will not retreat. You're half right. Although my destination isn't a dragon's lair or a tiger's lair, it isn't far off. My trip is very dangerous and I might not be able to come back. Even if it is like this, do you still want to go with me? The thousand-faced young master's heart turned cold. He thought of a place and blurted, Chen. Not bad, you're very smart actually guessing it. Ning revealed a faint smile. Even the thousand-faced young master, who had experienced countless dangers and would not easily change his expression, turned pale after hearing this. The lair. The Chen of the battlefield. On the battlefield, no matter how good a martial arts expert was, he would not be able to withstand the tidal wave of attacks from the army. The scene of tens of thousands of arrows being fired and the galloping horses appearing like clouds appeared in his mind like a nightmare. He was one of the top experts in the Violet Sky Pavilion, but before he lost his strength, he didn't dare step foot into the battlefield because no one was able to stop an army of tens of thousands by himself. That was no different than a mantis trying to stop an army, and it was absolutely impossible. Chapter 1628. Chen Ning stared at him without blinking, not missing the trace of fear that flashed in his eyes. She gently smiled and patted his shoulder as she said in a gentle voice, Chen, I never force people against their will, not to mention going to such a dangerous place. You said that I would treat you and Xiaoru the same way. That's right, you and Xiaoru are people I want to protect, so I won't let you go into danger. That's why I didn't tell Xiaoru when I left the palace because I didn't want her to go into danger with me. I won't bring Xiaoru, so naturally I won't bring you either. If you really want to follow me, then wait here for me. After she said this, she stood up and said, You should rest, I'll leave tomorrow morning. The thousand-faced young master gritted his teeth and made his decision. No, Chen wants to be with you. I said that I would protect you. Empress, you have to bring Chen with you. Chen Ning looked down at him and said, Chen, are you not afraid of death? Chen is afraid of death, but Chen is even more afraid of the Empress encountering danger. As long as the Empress brings me, I can protect you. He looked up and pleaded. Protect me? Chen Ning curled her lips and gave a gentle laugh. Chen, you were almost harmed by someone today. If I hadn't noticed that something was wrong with you and knocked you out, I don't know what you would have done. The thousand-faced young master's face turned red before turning pale. He said in a trembling voice, What does the Empress mean? What happened to Chen? I don't remember what happened. My head hurts. He held his head and gave a snort, covering up his guilty conscience. Chen Ning said, You were too careless, you didn't notice that someone had done something to the dishes you made. Those dishes were all drugged and after eating them, you'll lose your mind and do some strange things. The thousand-faced young master said in a small voice, Chen must have done something shameful, right? It's a good thing I knocked you out in time, otherwise you would have taken off your clothes in front of me. Cuckoo, although we're both women, it's not good for you to be naked. Chen, you won't blame me, right? Chen Ning gave a gentle cough and asked in an apologetic voice. Of course Chen won't blame the Empress. If it wasn't for the Empress saving me, I wouldn't have the face to see anyone. The thousand-faced young master covered his face with his hands and revealed an ashamed look. His actions were not acting but rather coming from the bottom of his heart. It was a good thing she had knocked him out with a chair, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Chen, think about it carefully. Who did you offend? Why did they drug your dishes? When the thousand-faced young master heard this, he secretly felt lucky. So it turned out that this sly girl actually didn't suspect him. She thought it was someone else who drugged her. Chen. Chapter 1629. The thousand-faced young master's framing was flawless because the shopkeeper had indeed been sneaking glances at him. That pair of lecherous eyes made him want to dig them out, so he didn't feel any guilt at all. You're talking about that shopkeeper? Well, that's possible. Ever since you entered the door, his sneaky eyes have been staring at you. One look and you can tell he's an old pervert. This might be a shady inn, so let's quickly leave this place. Chen Ning agreed with the thousand-faced young master's words. The thousand-faced young master was even more eager to leave this shameful place. Concubine, that shopkeeper is actually a shady inn. Why don't we burn it down? He suggested. As long as they burned the inn, they could get rid of the evidence. No one would know what they had done and how they had shamed themselves. Then there would be no evidence left. Burn the inn. Chen Ning looked at him in shock. That's right. Chen Ning frowned and looked at him with a disapproving gaze. If we burn the inn, what about the customers in the inn? Even if that shopkeeper has evil intentions, he doesn't deserve death. Not to mention that the customers in the inn aren't bad people, they're all innocent. Chen, how could you have such a vicious thought? The thousand-faced young master had a stomach full of disapproval. He thought that there was nothing vicious about it. What was the big deal about setting a fire to kill someone? Thinking about the assassins of his Purple Heaven Pavilion, which one of their hands wasn't stained with blood. In order to eliminate their target, let alone setting a fire to an inn, even if they had to kill the entire city, they wouldn't even blink. But when he saw Chen Ning's expression, he immediately lowered his head and said in shame, it was Chen who said the wrong thing. Chen only felt that the shopkeeper actually dared to poison the concubine's food. Luckily the concubine is fine. If the concubine was poisoned this time, then Qian Qian would definitely not let him go. Chen Ning said with a serious expression, Qian Qian, since you've decided to follow me, then we have to make a promise. You're by my side, you can't have any killing intent. If you hurt an innocent person, I don't want you to follow me anymore. Do you hear me? The thousand-faced young master's eyes went wide. Not even a single person? This girl was really funny. She actually asked the Purple Heaven Pavilion's assassin not to kill. It was like telling a wolf not to eat sheep. He raised his hand and solemnly swore an oath. But in his stomach he was secretly laughing. This vow was only used to deceive this stinky girl in front of him. It could not be taken seriously at all. He kept saying Qian Qian, and never mentioned the word I. Obviously he did not have the slightest bit of sincerity. But he was sure that the stinky girl would not be able to tell. Sure enough, seeing him swear this oath, Chen Ning's expression relaxed. Chapter 1630. The thousand-faced young master didn't care about her words, but he revealed a humble expression as he nodded. Qian Qian understands. Chen Ning then said, not to mention whether it was the shopkeeper who poisoned you or not, that is only our guess and we haven't seen it with our own eyes. If it wasn't him who poisoned you and you still set the store on fire, you will only harm many innocent people. Once this fire starts, it is very likely that the nearby citizens will be affected as well. Before you do anything, you have to think about the consequences. The thousand-faced young master nodded and said in an ashamed voice, Qian Qian is stupid, luckily the Empress has reminded me. Qian Qian won't dare do it again. Chen Ning revealed a faint smile at him. Alright, you might not understand these things right now, but I'm doing this for your own good. I hope you don't do anything wrong. If you do something wrong, you might take one wrong step and every step will be wrong. It will be hard for you to walk the right path in the future. Also, don't call me Empress in the future. Then how should Qian Qian address you? Chen Ning thought about it and said, how about this, when there are people around you can call me Big Brother. When it's just the two of us you can call me Elder Sister. I treat Xiao Ru like my own little sister, so in my heart, you are also my little sister. Elder Sister? The corner of the thousand-faced young master's eyes twitched, feeling like he had been struck by lightning. He looked at Chen Ning's delicate and tender face. It was so tender that water could be squeezed out. This girl shouldn't even be 18 years old this year and he was older than her by 5-6 years, but she wanted him to call her elder sister? That's right, Qian Qian, are you not willing to recognize me as your elder sister? Chen Ning looked at him and said. In her heart, she felt that she was older and more mature than Qian Qian. It had to be known that she was a spirit that had crossed over, and her original age and the age of this body added together, she was still older than Qian Qian. Not letting her call her auntie was already a sign that she was afraid of calling her old. The thousand-faced young master gritted his teeth. All right, elder sister is elder sister. When this elder sister falls into his hands, he will let this elder sister know just how powerful this younger sister is. However, when the words reached his mouth, he couldn't open his mouth. His face turned as red as a piece of cloth. The thousand-faced young master's eyes turned and immediately thought of a good reason. Empress, it's not that Qian Qian doesn't want to recognize elder sister, but Qian Qian had an elder sister when Qian Qian was young and it was her that made Qian Qian's voice become like this. She is the person Qian Qian trusted the most, but she harmed Qian Qian's life. This reason was so flawless that even he secretly applauded his own quick-wittedness. When Chen Ning heard this, she said in an apologetic voice, it's all my fault, I didn't think of this. And then don't call me elder sister. How should I call you? QT Qianri. Qian Qian was proud in his heart, but he asked a question that puzzled him. Nyang Nyang, there is one thing that Qian Qian doesn't understand. That dish was drugged, and after eating it, Qian Qian lost control and did all sorts of shameful things. However, Nyang Nyang also ate quite a bit of that dish, so why are you fine? Of course I want to learn. It's a pity that Qian Qian doesn't have the fortune to have such a good master. The thousand-faced young master sighed as the light in his eyes dimmed. Master learning, not medicine, but he didn't want to learn. Qian skills. Ian Qian Qi, is Qi. If you want to learn, you. If you want to learn, I can teach you a thing or two. Chen Ning said with a smile, although I only know a little about medicine, I have read quite a few medical books. If you really want to, we can compare notes. Qian Qian, actually studying medicine is good for people. It can help you digest the hostility in your heart and give you a compassionate heart so you won't want to kill people so easily in the future. Chapter 1633. The thousand-faced young master suddenly felt like he had shot himself in the foot. He wanted to cry but had no tears. If he really called her aunt, wouldn't he be a generation lower than her? If he knew it would be like this, he would have agreed to call her elder sister. Chen Chen, you're not willing? I'm willing. Chen Chen is willing. Then Chen Chen will call you aunt from now on. The thousand-faced young master almost squeezed out the word, aunt, through his teeth, but he had no choice but to pretend to be overjoyed. Chen Chen has never had anyone to love her since she was young. Now that I have an aunt, I'm very happy, he said insincerely. He didn't care about an aunt at all. She was simply his ancestor. His nemesis. Alright, then in the future you can call me big brother in front of others. When it's just the two of us you can call me aunt. Don't always call me aunt, it'll be revealed sooner or later. Then again, I won't be an aunt anymore after leaving the palace. Chen Chen, stand up, don't kneel so easily in the future. The thousand-faced young master stood up and rubbed his kneecaps. His heart was filled with bad luck. Thinking back to when he was in the Purple Heaven Pavilion, he was the respected young master and everyone had to bow down to him. He never thought that there would be a day where he would be bullied by a dog. In these past few days, his kneecaps were swollen from kneeling. Especially after entering the palace, he had to kneel down to everyone he saw. Hearing Chen Ning say that he wouldn't need to kneel in front of her in the future, he was so happy that snot came out. Since this is most likely a black shop and the shopkeeper failed to harm us, he might use another evil plan. Why don't we take advantage of the fact that the sky hasn't brightened and hurry on our way? Chen Ning said. Alright, Chen Chen will listen to aunt's arrangements. The thousand-faced young master lowered his head and gently replied. He thought about it and then said, Aunt, Chen Chen's voice is really unpleasant to listen to. Chen Chen should continue to pretend to be mute on the way? His appearance was enough to cause the downfall of a country, but his voice did not match his appearance at all. Actually, his voice was very beautiful, but it was a man's voice, so it gave people a strange feeling. If it wasn't for the fact that he had found a good excuse, Chen Ning would have become suspicious sooner or later. Chen Ning looked at him thoughtfully and said, Chen Chen, if you really care about your voice, I'll take you to the Godly Physician Valley after I'm done with my matters. I believe that with my master's medical skills, he will definitely be able to cure your voice. The thousand-faced young master's heart skipped a beat as his face involuntarily turned pale. He knew that he might be able to fool others by disguising himself as a woman, but he was afraid that he would not be able to fool the world's #1 divine doctor. As long as he felt his pulse, he would know that he was a man. My throat has been broken for so many years, it can't be cured. It's better not to trouble the godly doctor. Moreover, Chen Chen heard that it's very difficult to invite the godly doctor to personally treat the illness. Chen Chen is so lowly, I'm afraid you don't have such luck. He racked his brain to think of a reason to refuse. You're really talking nonsense. If I bring you there, are you still worried that my master won't treat you? Then it's settled. If we can come back alive from the battlefield, I will definitely have my master cure your throat. Chen Ning clapped her hands and said with confidence. Battlefield? And are we really going to the battlefield? Chapter 1634. When he had not lost his martial arts, he had almost lost his life on the battlefield. Now that he had lost his martial arts and she was a weak girl who did not know martial arts, if the two of them went to the battlefield, if it wasn't sending themselves to their deaths, then what was it? No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't understand whether this girl was stupid or not. She didn't want to be the Empress and didn't want to enjoy the glory and splendor of the palace. She actually wanted to go to the front lines to suffer. Was she tired of living? If she was tired of living, then he wasn't tired of living. He didn't want to die with her. I really have to go. I have to go. Chen Ning forcefully nodded and said, It's still the same words. If you don't want to go, then stay here and wait for me. The thousand-faced young master was helpless. He could only clench his teeth and say, Chen Chen swears to follow aunt until death. He thought that no matter what, he had to complete his revenge plan before they met the South Yu army. Time was tight, he could not waste any more time. This lass was immune to all poisons, so his plan of poisoning her was obviously not going to work. He had to think of another way to do it. Alright then, let's go. Pack your luggage, I'll wait for you downstairs. After Chen Ning said this, she went to her room and took her luggage. She went downstairs to take their horses and waited at the entrance of the inn. Not long after, Chen Chen also came downstairs with a small bag on his back. The two of them jumped onto their horses, and before the sky was bright, they left the small city and headed south. After a while, the thousand-faced young master took out an oiled paper bag from his bag and gave it to Chen Ning. This is the dessert I made yesterday. You can eat it first. Chen Ning smiled as she took it and said, "You're still the most attentive, being so thoughtful. I was in a rush to leave and forgot to bring my rations." She opened the oiled paper bag and placed a piece of dessert into her mouth. She praised, "I never thought that after leaving the palace, I would be able to eat desserts that are even better than the ones made by the chefs in the palace. Chen Chen, your cooking is this good, it seems like I'll have good food on the way." Since Aunt likes it, Chen Chen is very happy. The thousand-faced young master lowered his head in embarrassment, but his eyes revealed a proud look. When he was handing over the dessert, he had secretly sprinkled some catnip powder on Chen Ning's sleeves, but the other side did not notice at all. Since he knew that she was immune to poison, he did not poison her and only sprinkled in a bit of mustard powder. He was still not willing to give up. Immune to poison? However, the bramble mustard powder and catnip weren't poisons, but their combined power was more terrifying than most poisons. He had personally suffered from these two poisons, and the experience that night was as terrible as a nightmare to him. The stray cats that came after smelling him almost dug out his eyes and almost turned him into a delicious meal in their stomachs. It wouldn't be long before the woman in front of him would taste the fear he had tasted at night and the taste of being treated as a meal by a stray cat. That was very interesting, very interesting. Chen Ning did not notice the tricks the thousand-faced young master was playing at all. She ate two desserts with relish and then gave the oil paper to the thousand-faced young master. "Chen Chen, you should eat a few to fill your stomach. We still have half a day's journey to the next town, you won't be able to last until then if you don't eat." The thousand-faced young master was afraid of raising her suspicions, so he thought that the mustard powder alone would not have any effect. As long as he did not touch the catnip, the wild cats would not attack him. Chapter 1635. Achoo. Achoo. Chen Ning sneezed twice. She rubbed her nose and knit her brows as she said, "That's not right." The thousand-faced young master couldn't help looking up at her. "What's wrong?" Chen Ning forcefully sniffed and her nose knit even tighter. "I think I smell cat mint." Cat what?" The thousand-faced young master was shocked and stuttered. "This is bad, how did she notice it?" This cat mint smell only had a faint peppermint smell. If one didn't have a very sensitive sense of smell, they wouldn't be able to notice it. How could this girl's nose be as sensitive as a cat's or a dog's? Chen Ning said, "Cat mint, it is a plant that attracts cats and cats love its smell." Adding in the fact that cats have a very sensitive sense of smell, they can smell it from far away. If you add in bramble mustard powder, then the cats will go crazy. That's right, it's the smell of cat mint. I've smelled it once, so it can't be wrong. Strange, why do I have the smell of cat mint on me? Didn't I just change into these clothes when I left the inn? She suspiciously looked at the thousand-faced young master. The thousand-faced young master's heart almost jumped out of his chest. He looked away with a guilty conscience, not daring to look at her. At the same time, he couldn't help grabbing onto the reins, preparing to beat the horse into a wild gallop. Although she didn't know martial arts, he had fallen to her hands again and again. This girl's body was filled with treasures. The first time he had fallen to her silent hidden weapons. He didn't even see her raise her hand, but a large cluster of poisonous needles had stung him like bees. Even with his skills, he couldn't dodge it and was instantly stung into a hornet's nest. The second time she had a strange thing in her hand. It wasn't big, but it was not weak at all. It made him lose his sense of direction and he completely lost the ability to resist. He had also been fed a bone-transforming pill by this girl, losing the cultivation he had painstakingly cultivated for over 20 years. Adding in the fact that he had heard from the Zhaorong princess, she had won an impenetrable snow silk robe from the princess. At that time, his eyes were filled with jealousy and envy. Now that he had lost his cultivation, he could only secretly make a move. If it was an open fight, he would definitely not be this girl's opponent. As long as she took out that flaming concealed weapon, it would immediately explode his 3 souls and 7 spirits. He didn't want to experience that kind of frightening feeling a second time. His nerves were completely tense. As long as Chen Ning said that he was the one who poisoned her, he would immediately beat his horse and quickly escape from this girl's side. "Chan, do you think the innkeeper snuck into my room and sprinkled catnip on my clothes while I was taking care of you in your room?" "Chen?" The thousand-faced young master was stunned for a moment. Following that, his heart that was hanging in his throat relaxed as a relaxed smile appeared on his face. Yes, that must be it. That innkeeper clearly failed with his first plan, so he tried a second one. I didn't expect his heart to be so vicious. If we knew he was this evil, we would have burned down his shop. He angrily swung his whip. Chapter 1636. The thousand-faced young master's heart wanted to vomit blood, but he revealed a concerned expression. Aunt, you have to be careful. Chen Ning nodded and took out a set of men's clothes from her bag. She sniffed it and then said in a relieved voice, "It's good, this set of clothes isn't covered in catnip powder. It seems like that person only sprinkled catnip powder on the top piece of clothing in a hurry." She jumped off the horse and looked around. Then she said to the thousand-faced young master, "Chen Chen, you have to be careful too. This forest is dense and there might be bandits around." The thousand-faced young master gave a cold laugh in his heart. He was thinking what kind of person this young master was. Why would he be afraid of bandits? But he said, "Many thanks for Aunt's concern." Chen Ning warned him a few more times before taking the clothes and walking behind a large rock not far away. The thousand-faced young master watched as her figure disappeared behind the rock. He secretly thought that it would be best if a poisonous snake bit her while she was changing clothes. Damn, this girl was immune to 100 poisons, she would be fine even if she was bitten by a poisonous snake. Now that she had seen through the catnip powder, what method should he use to deal with her? Jia. He was thinking about this when he suddenly heard the cries of crows in the air. When he looked up, he saw a group of crows flapping their wings as they flew over his head. How unlucky, I actually let the crows fly over my head. It's like a dark cloud covering my head. The thousand-faced young master spat on the ground. Suddenly, there was a whistling sound as a whistling arrow flew into the air, letting out an ear-piercing whistling sound. It can't be. Could it really be that crow's mouth was right and we met bandits? The thousand-faced young master was very experienced. He knew that this whistling arrow was a signal from the bandits before they appeared. As expected, after the whistling arrow sounded, several dozen large men came out of the forest. They had a rough cloth covering their heads and were wearing blue clothes and blue pants. They held weapons in their hands as they surrounded him. The thousand-faced young master sat on his horse and coldly looked down, not making a sound. If he still had his cultivation, these several dozen bandits would not be in his eyes at all, but now, damn, what he was afraid of really came. Why didn't these bandits come earlier or later? They just had to come after that girl left. Otherwise the one who would be having a headache right now wouldn't be him. Ha ha ha, my luck today is not bad. I went down the mountain to hunt and actually met a delicate little beauty. Just when the thousand-faced young master was thinking of a way to escape, a tall and sturdy man with wide shoulders and a round waist walked out from the crowd. When he saw the thousand-faced young master, his eyes opened wide like a leopard's and he couldn't help but drool from the corners of his mouth. Not only him, the dozens of burly men around him all stared at the thousand-faced young master without blinking. Everyone was stunned by his beauty. Although he was wearing a cotton dress with thorns and hairpins, the coarse clothes did not diminish his beauty in the slightest. He was like an unpolished beauty painting, causing the bandits to stare blankly at him. Haha, miss, it is fate that brought us together. Today I, Big Brother Shah, am able to meet Mississippi. It is the fortune of 3 lifetimes. I wonder if Miss is betrothed? Why don't you marry me, Boss Shah, and become my wife? Chapter 1637. Tsk. Look at your little hands, so white and tender. Even Boss Shah's heart is thumping. Little beauty, what's your name? Just as his fan-like hand was about to touch the back of the thousand-faced young master's hand, the thousand-faced young master suddenly retracted his hand. That Boss Shah touched nothing but air. However, he was not annoyed and touched the thousand-faced young master's feet. Little beauty is beautiful, your feet are beautiful too. I couldn't tell, but the beauty's feet are actually quite big. However, I heard that women with big feet will give birth. Ha, little beauty, marry this fort master. Tomorrow give birth to a white and chubby son for this fort master. How about that? He unscrupulously touched the thousand-faced young master's feet and smiled until his eyes were squinted into a line. He had clearly treated the thousand-faced young master as a prey in his net. Even if he had wings, he would not be able to escape from his palm. Scram. The thousand-faced young master was so angry that his face flushed red. He pulled his feet out forcefully and kicked that Boss Shah's right cheek. The strength of this kick was indeed not small. Ouch. Boss Shah cried out in pain and rubbed his cheek. He glanced sideways at the thousand-faced young master but was not annoyed. He continued to smile lecherously and said, I couldn't tell that the little beauty's strength is not small. However, I like it. This kind of beauty will be exciting in bed. She's much stronger than those weak women. Ha ha, little beauty, you have to obey me whether you want to or not. His right hand reached out and grabbed the thousand-faced young master's ankle. With a tug, he immediately pulled the thousand-faced young master down from the horse. If the thousand-faced young master still had his skills, even 10 Ba Sha would not be his match. How could this tug force pull him down from the horse? However, he clearly wanted to dodge, but he did not have the strength to do so. He fell on his back and heavily fell to the ground. Before he could even take 2 breaths, Ba Sha pounced on him like a tiger pouncing on a sheep. That strong and heavy body was like a large sandbag pressing down on him. Little beauty, I Ba Sha am not a lustful person. If it was normal times, I would treat you well and not do anything to you in broad daylight, but you are just too beautiful. My heart is about to jump out from looking at you. I can't hold it back. Come, let me kiss your little mouth first. Ba Sha said this while pouting like a pig as he kissed the thousand-faced young master's lips. The thousand-faced young master was filled with anger as he tried to kiss the thousand-faced young master. His heart was filled with so much hatred that he wanted to vomit blood. He just wanted to dismember this stupid pig in front of him into 1,000 pieces. Let me go, let me go. Although he struggled, he only had the strength of a normal person. How could he be a match for Ba Sha? Helplessly, he could only shout for help, thinking that that stinky girl Chin Ning was nearby. Once she heard his shout, she would definitely come to save him. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.